Inside of me, there are two wolves. The first enjoys the finer aspects of music, the theatrics and storytelling of bands like Genesis, the sonic soundscapes of Yes, the complexity of modern acts like Dream Theater or Between the Buried and Me, the dark imagery and incredible production of Clipping, or the sheer grandiosity of orchestral symphonies and suites of the past. The second just kind of really loves Creed. Yes, Creed, one of the go-to worst bands of all time, is a huge guilty pleasure of mine, so I figured, why not take this opportunity to feed that second wolf a bit and just inundate myself with some Creed? But why this video? Why this band? Why now? Well, for one thing, I just kind of thought it would be really, really funny. But secondly, Creed's fucking back, baby! That's right, shortly after this video comes out, they're going to be embarking on the Summer of '99 cruise, along with Three Doors Down, Buck Cherry, and a couple other similar bands from the era. And then they also have a big reunion tour that they're going to be doing this fall with, a couple similar bands like that. So, hey, Creed's ready to enter the limelight, baby. They were even in a Super Bowl commercial this year.
Fine. I'll throw him.
And Creed's here.
So, now that we've taken a moment to fully establish that Creed is indeed back, what we're going to be doing here today is listening to every song off of every Creed album, reviewing them objectively, and then ranking them at the end to see just how terrible this band actually was, or, surprisingly decent at times. But let's face it, with all this press and tour announcement and everything, they're probably going to make another album, right? They're probably just a couple months away from announcing that they are indeed working on a 5th studio album, so this whole thing's going to be outdated soon anyway. But hey, guarantee of a part 2. But why me? Why am I particularly making this video? Well, I feel like I'm not going to come at it from the cynicism of somebody who never listened to Creed and just says, hey, I'm going to check out this terrible, awful band and just hates everything on principle. No, for a short time in middle school, yes, that's middle school 8th grade me right there, Creed was legitimately my favorite band. I know, I hadn't discovered really good music yet. Shortly after this kind of phase, a friend of mine showed me Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, and it legitimately changed the course of my life. But I had this mix CD where I took my dad's copies of Human Clay and Weathered right here behind me, kind of took half of each CD and made one whole big Creed mix CD that I listened to that MF constantly on the bus to and from school, back when everyone carried around their Sony Walkman CD players. Yeah, I was that kid. I was listening to Creed and I thought I was so cool for it. So, like I said, I'm not going to come at it with the cynicism of somebody who's just already willing and ready to just hate everything they hear. But also at the same time, these other two albums, My Own Prison and Full Circle, I hadn't really listened to before any of this. I'd only heard one song from, both of them really. So half of this is going to be pretty new to me. Half of it's going to be bathed in how many? 20 years of nostalgia? Oh my goodness. But I'm willing to put nostalgia to the side and kind of take a really objective look at some of these songs here. But this video is not just going to be my takes on this. I've asked a couple content creators whose music tastes I've come to know and generally trust, and I asked them what they had to say about Creed, and here they are.
Yeah, Creed was one of those interesting ones for me. I remember when Human Clay came out and Higher was, one of the big tracks of the time, as well as With Arms Wide Open. And yeah, I remember those two tracks becoming almost like meme tracks before meme tracks were even a thing. I wasn't all that partial to that kind of music, at that time. I was much more of a fan of the pop punk. And I also found if I was going to listen to music like this, I would listen to, I guess, earlier rock like Rush and whatnot, because this was kind of coming out after the big push of grunge, but before the big inswell of nu metal, with bands like Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and all those types of bands. So it's this little tiny pocket just after grunge, but before nu metal, where you had Creed, Puddle of Mud, Theory of a Dead Man, and Nickelback. Within there, I have a little sliver of, some of my favorite moments of Creed, just with Arms Wide Open and Higher. But I think back on them more with, I don't want to say laughter, because I think that might be the wrong thing. I always looked upon them very fondly because of the joy that it brought, and maybe not in the sense that they wanted it to.
So if you were a Christian teen at a certain time in the late 90s, early 2000s, You had this experience where you would be at school talking with one of your school friends, and they would bring up a band, and you would go, actually, they're Christian. And that's one of my first memories of Creed, was a band that was played on MTV. It was played on the radio. It was this kind of thing where it was like, see, the Christian message does have resonance for the popular culture. And then, of course, Creed turned into, a walking punchline. And so we kind of lost that as Christian teens or whatever. And now that I'm not a Christian, it doesn't really matter to me anymore. And I find most of their music to be pretty bland, safe, uneventful, maybe. But I did have my own prison growing up because they were actually Christian.
Hi, I'm Ty Tuesday, and as a Midwesterner, the eternal push-pull of are they Christian, are they just faking it, like are they doing it for sales, that kind of thing, was the only thing that could have overshadowed how much they were kind of like detested, largely just for being like kind of lame or corny or whatever. But there also was a lot of ire from the like hard rock and metal community that these damn Christians are encroaching on our hallowed evil grounds, right? Like that was part of it. There was also definitely just like a communal understanding that liking Creed was super uncool, but it was less due to the music of Creed and more their association of being the first like Christian rock metal band that was actually able to break into the mainstream and like get major exposure. And I don't know if anyone else had to grapple with it. So I think there's definitely like a very interesting case to be studied when it comes to Creed. Also, it's so cheesy.
Thanks to everyone who sent in video clips for that. It means the world to me that y'all would help contribute to this. But before we dive in, we need to ask ourselves technically kind of two questions. Who and what is Creed? Creed was formed in 1994 in the great state of Florida. It's the popularity of grunge acts of the time, such as like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all of those. And at first they modeled their sound after those bands, but as they became more established, they kind of really figured out their sound. And one of the general criticisms people throw out about Creed is that all their music sounds the same. And in fact, there is kind of a typical formula to any given Creed song. You start off in the key of D minor, let's just say, and you kind of have Mark Tremonti, the guitar player, picking away at some kind of light chords. You have a man with a voice that would make Eddie Vedder cry. Take Eddie Vedder's voice, if that's the 1 on your scale. Scott Stapp is an 11 here. You have him crooning about one of 3 topics, either number 1, the world sucks, number 2, I'm a shitty little guy, or 3, God? Question mark. You add in a really, really basic 4/4 beat on the drums, some barely audible, if you can even hear it at all, bass. You get really heavy in the chorus and you keep singing about one of those 3 subject matters. You go verse, chorus, bridge, quiet chorus, loud chorus to end. And that's your typical Creed song, and that's pretty much almost every song on all of their albums. Now that we've kind of established how generic and mediocre Creed can be and kind of is most of the time, how were they perceived at the time? Because obviously when they were putting out this music, we didn't have the 20-something years of hindsight that we do now to just kind of know that they weren't really it. At the time, they were kind of fucking everywhere. They had 2 albums that debuted at number 1, Human Clay and Weathered Over Here. Human Clay selling about 20 million copies, of which probably 18 million of them now probably line your local half-price books. They had a Billboard number 1 hit with Arms Wide Open, which also won them a fucking Grammy at the time. Creed was pretty big at the time. I especially remember seeing a lot of them when I would watch Raw and SmackDown. They were kind of, advertising this Weathered album a whole heck of a lot. And I remember Jim Ross saying, go listen to the new Creed. Here's their song, My Sacrifice. And they'd play a little bit of the music video or something like that. I also remember them pitching Saint Anger by Metallica a lot. Wrestling fans have good taste in music. You don't win a Grammy for nothing, right? They received constant radio play on 94.5 The Buzz here in Houston, and the reason I had access to some of these is because my dad, who hears any somewhat popular song on the radio, would walk into his Best Buy, go grab whatever CD the song was on, buy it, and then just have the CD. He's got like every shit band from the 90s and early 2000s. He's got like their whole discographies because he would just walk into Best Buy and say, "How do you do, fellow teens? I'm here to buy the new Creed." just as God intended, right? But before we dive into the music, we need to kind of talk about frontman and lead singer and main lyricist, I believe, Scott Stapp. After all, these are pretty much his words we're going to be hearing for the most part on this album, and his is, kind of a sad story, actually. We got a lot of jokes in this video, folks, trust me. Trust me, believe me, folks, we got the best jokes. I don't know why I'm doing the Donald Trump thing, but we're going to be serious here for a second, because a lot of Scott Stapp's personal life has been marred by addiction, depression, and mental illness. I won't go into any of the real details of any of his very public meltdowns, potential suicide attempts, and it was a rough time for him. And from what I can tell, he's doing well now. He seems to be sober. Obviously he's reconnected with his bandmates there, so that's a plus. He seems to dedicate a lot of his free times to doing a lot of veteran outreach kind of stuff. And for no reason whatsoever, I went to his Twitter page and scrolled back to January 6th of 2021 and November of, the preceding year 2020. And thankfully, I don't know why anyone would say anything about those days in particular, but, thankfully I didn't really see anything there. So at the very least, political views are something we're gonna get into just a little bit here in this video, but for the most part, he doesn't seem to be off the deep end on the shitty side of things. So we'll take what we can get, folks. But real talk, Scott, if you happen to see this, I hope you're doing okay, man, and just know that your music has legitimately touched this man's life, even though I'm going to be shitting on you probably for the next hour or so. Also, if you see this, can I get tickets on that cruise, please? Or hey, hell, even when you come to Houston on the tour, can I come see y'all, please? I don't mean any of what I'm about to say. I just kind of really want to see y'all in concert. I think it would be really fucking funny if my one time seeing Creed in my life was invited by the band. So, Scott, hit me up. Also, one final note before we begin. Like I've said, Creed is a very special band for me. I was listening to them at a very, formative part of my life. And, it's that special connection that I feel like really leads me to make this video the best I can. So before you go off in the comments saying like, ooh, do this for Nickelback, do this for, whatever other butt rock band you want me to talk about, I don't think I'm going to be doing 2 more of these. I also just really don't want to listen to 10 Nickelback albums, folks. I can't bring myself to do it. Unless you pay me a fuck ton of money, I guess. I don't know, maybe I could do like Dave Matthews Band or Reliant K or the Sonic Adventure 2 soundtrack, but only time will tell. We'll see how this video does. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all the YouTube things. I've been writing this script for a long time. This is my first actual video essay. So, hey, do all the YouTube things. Be nice to me. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think of fucking Creed in the comments. And with all that out of the way, let's dive into their first album of My Own Prison. Creed's debut album, My Own Prison, was released in June of 1997 on independent record label Blue Collar Records. After a couple months of some of their singles receiving significant rock radio play, they were picked up by another record label, Wind Up Records, which, though they were still independent, they were distributed by BMG, a much larger company. Creed went on to become the most successful band on Wind Up Records, and through my research, the only other band I really recognized that was also fairly significant was Evanescence. Fun fact. The album went on to be a pretty big success for the band, obviously, because they went on to make 3 more records after this, and you can see the colossal runtime of this video. Obviously, there's a lot more to talk about here than just this one, but it went on to sell about 6 million copies or so. So, with all that in mind, let's see how one of the worst bands of all time got their start. Was it a pretty good record, or did they kind of always suck from the start? Let's dive in. So, song 1 on Creed's first album, and you remember that whole Creed formula I talked about just a few minutes ago? Creed's first song on their first album falls into this formula completely. We start with a slow, clean picking, get heavy in the chorus. The song easily falls into both the world sucks and I'm a shitty little guy genres. It's kind of like, oh, the world sucks and I'm just such a shitty little guy. No one else could be as shitty as me going through all this, right? And it's 6.5 minutes long. I will say the one thing that helps the song not be a complete slog is that it changes up a little bit in the middle. And I'm gonna immediately make a comparison that might get a couple of you to immediately click off the video, but I would like to implore you to stay. At least hear me out on this one. Kind of reminds me of Black Sabbath a little bit. No, seriously. How many times does Black Sabbath start a song super, super slow and then do a completely different riff change in the middle? War Pigs, Hand of Doom. It's a thing they do time and time again, and it's something Creed emulates pretty successfully here. I honestly don't have a lot of negative things to say about it. I think in general on this album, more so than most, you can actually hear the bass a little bit better. And I don't know if that's just because they actually wrote better bass parts for this album, or if just being recorded independently, on their own, not in a super big, successful, famous studio. Maybe the recording technology wasn't so good. The bass does have kind of a buzzy kind of tone to it sometimes. It doesn't sound the cleanest. So, hey, you know what? I'll take it though. If we get little mistakes like that and little kind of recording glitches, I'll take it if it means we can hear the bass, actually. I do have a few small criticisms I do want to nitpick about though. See, I'm a big sucker for ooh and ah harmony like you'd hear in like the Beach Boys and the Beatles and stuff like that. Obviously, those bands in the 60s inspired a lot of other bands to do it in their music moving forward. And Creed does that here. There's like a long held out sustained like yeah in the chorus here, but there's this really ugly filter on it and it just sounds awful. It sounds like Peter Griffin almost. Listen to it and let me know what you think. I think this is Scott Stapp doubled here. Mark Tremonti does provide vocals on this album, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But I think this sounds like Scott, or maybe it was Peter Griffin before he struck it big on TV. This is a fine start to their album. Honestly, if you just want to get the true Creed experience of like, what's like one Creed song I can listen to that sounds like a lot of other of their stuff? Honestly, song 1 on their first album isn't a bad place to start and stop if that's all you want to listen to. Ode is one of a very, very small handful of songs that don't have the title dropped in them. For the most part, if a song is titled something, you're going to hear those words in the song. Off the top of my head, I can only really think of 3 songs potentially that don't do this, and we're already getting one here. I don't know, maybe they originally wanted to call it One because in the chorus we get a lot of ones. One step on the road, one head in the clouds, one sight to the blind, all this stuff. But they have another song on this album called One. So maybe they were like, shit, we can't have 2 songs called One. Just change one letter. We'll make it Ode, right? But the song is pretty good. I immediately talked about the Creed formula being fulfilled on the first song. Thrown completely out the window here, folks. This one starts off kind of heavy, pretty up-tempo for the band, actually, with a pretty good heavy riff. And a complaint some people can have with heavier music is that it doesn't have that pop catchiness kind of thing. There's no real hook to lean onto, but the chorus here is one of the catchiest choruses I think the band has ever made in any of their music. This is one that was constantly getting stuck in my head throughout this project. I'd be, trying to think of things to say about other songs, and I'd just be going, one step on the road. It's a good chorus. I like it a lot. And then the heavy riff comes right back in after that. It's good. There's really good. Once again, going to talk about the bass. This album is the most I'm going to discuss the bass throughout this entire video. So don't get used to it, folks. But there's actually pretty good interplay between the guitar and the bass. When those heavy riffs are going, you can actually hear that the bass is doubling it and kind of, playing along pretty good. It's impressive, for Creed. But this one, I don't know. I like this one better than Torn. This is a good one, folks. We're off to a really good start. I was really afraid that this album was just going to be like, yeah, it's fine, and I'm not going to have like anything to say about these and just be like, yeah, this song's fine. But you know what? We're off to a much better start than I expected. Can it get better than this? Okay, I kind of teed that one up a little too obviously because the title track of My Own Prison, titled My Own Prison, of course, is pretty damn good. But before we talk about the song itself, I need to talk about the 2 different versions of the album. I mentioned that Creed, after just a couple months, was signed to Wind Up Records. Well, Wind Up put out a remastered version of this album pretty much immediately. They changed a couple things here and there. It's, most of the differences aren't anything to write home about, but there's 2 tracks that have significant changes to them. And this, My Own Prison, the title track, is one of them. There's about 45 seconds of cut content here, and a lot of the track lengths are different, but it's mostly just by like 2 or 3 seconds here. So 45 seconds is significant. We're not cutting any real like content from the song. It was just a full chorus that was doubled in one spot before the bridge, and they just took out the repetition. That's a good change. That makes the song a lot easier to get through. And because the remastered version is the one that, well, for one thing, I have, but it's also, if you look up any of the official uploads on their YouTube channel or anything like that, you're gonna hear the remastered wind-up version. So that's the version we're gonna be talking about here. But regardless, I think it's a great change. I did listen to both versions a couple times, obviously the wind-up version a lot more. And hey, anything to make a song much less of a slog to get through. 45 seconds is a lot just for a full chorus repetition. Yeah, it would be a little excessive if they kept that in. So, good choice. Good on you, Creed. You got some sense after all. Okay, let's talk about the song itself. I know we were talking up Ode, bucking the Creed formula, but this song goes right back to it. But that's okay. The genres that we get for this one are both I'm a Shitty Little Guy and God. Question mark, except you can pretty much slash that question mark because God is specifically mentioned throughout the song. And if there's one thing I want to praise on this one, it's the lyrics. A lot of Creed's lyrics are pretty simple, pretty basic. I will criticize them a lot more later. But here we get one of the better showings here from the band. The song is basically someone putting themselves on trial, feeling like God is putting them on trial for their sins they've done, the guilt they feel for the things they've done. Their mental state is not good in this one, folks. And there's some really good like courtroom imagery that really like sells how bleak this is and how bad the person feels about everything. And honestly, knowing what Scott was dealing with probably at this point in his life as well, but especially after with addiction, mental illness and everything, it really gives you a window into the guy like no other song really does.
Quarters in session, verdict is in, no appeal on the docket today.
It's not 100% good though. The liner notes, when it's listing out the credits for the band, list Mark Tremonti, guitar and vocals. On Wikipedia, as I was kind of pulling together basic research and everything, it says Mark Tremonti, guitar, vocals, lead vocals on My Own Prison. So I was like, what's that about? I gotta hear that one. And he sings lead in the choruses, which is a really wild decision to me when you have a singer who's so unique as Scott Stapp. Really, that's Creed's biggest strength, is you can pick them out of the crowd because of how ridiculous their lead singer sounds. Hey, unique voices are always gonna get you there. So why hand the reins over to the guitar player to sing lead for a chorus unless, he's got some pipes too? Let's hear what it sounds like. Oh man, he sounds like he's in his childhood bedroom recording as quietly and nervously as he can so his mom doesn't catch him recording Creed music and ground him. He sounds like he's already ashamed of the band like 20 years before he should be. He sounds like that one guy who auditioned for American Idol whose whole thing is that they just had like really nervous vibrato in their voice. This guy.
Oh my love, oh my darling.
Yeah, that's the feeling I get listening to this. It does get better once, the heavier guitars come in later in the song and we hear it. But just, man, this quiet stripped down version, he just sounds like he's so fucking nervous. And I'm so sorry, Mark. Maybe you should have let Scott take this one. Really, it's nothing major to criticize or anything. It's just, we're just trying to have a little bit of fun here, folks. But honestly, though, despite all that, this is easily the best song on the album so far. And spoilers, it is, in my opinion, the best song on the album. Just, man, the strength of the lyrics just carry this one, man. Looking up to God for redemption and having just not even God, Gabriel, the archangel, like God not even answering, just somebody else having to answer for him, saying like, nah, man, this one's all you. Guilty. Like, ooh, that's brutal, heavy stuff. Some good shit. So, kudos, Creed.
Sell my pity for a dime. Yeah, just one dime.
I don't practice Santeria. I ain't got no crystal ball. Every time I listen to this song, I can't help but hear the starting guitar notes to Santeria. Pity for a Dime is just your very, very stereotypical I'm a shitty little guy song. I'm just this shitty little guy. Somebody, I will pay someone to have pity on me. Ooh. And there's not really much to talk about this one. It starts off slow and light, it gets heavy, guitar comes in, and it's pretty basic. Until that guitar solo hits. Yes, Mark, I may have dumped on your vocals just one song ago, but like fucking A, dude, this guitar solo, this is easily the best guitar solo on any Creed song. Like nothing else they ever play tops this. This guitar solo fucking shreds. Don't let anyone ever tell you that Creed is musically not talented at all. They have at least one talented member, folks, and his name is Mark Tremonti. Just I don't know, maybe stay away from the lead vocals though. Seriously though, this solo rips. I love how he's just going at it and then just sits back while Scott comes in to sing Sell Me, Pity for a Dime. It's good shit. Man, I'm sure I'm playing bits and pieces of it here and there. The solo is so good that it single-handedly like saves this song from just being a mediocre kind of nothing of a song to being really fun to listen to. It's something that when it comes on, normally I would just kind of skip a song like this, but I'm like, no, let them cook. They got this. This song's going to have me by the end. And every time it's just exciting to hear this solo. Like I'm excited when I listen to this song, and that's not something I could say for a lot of Creed songs, folks. This one's great. My soul sees a different song in America. No, this is not a cover of the song from West Side Story, but it would be absolutely wild if it was, right? No, we get a kind of a The World Sucks kind of anthem here, or more typically, America Sucks. We'll get into some of the politics here in a couple songs. If you know, you know. But yeah, it's just kind of it's a little cringe. I don't want to really talk about it. But what I do want to talk about is the god awful organ sound we get here. What is right or wrong? I don't know who to believe in. It sounds worse than the Casio keyboard I had when I was 6. You know, same time frame, but it sounds like a children's toy, man. It sounds so bad. And I know, you know, like once again, independent, small studio recording kind of thing, but God, it sounds awful. It sounds so sappy trying to sing like trying to figure out what America is, and just hearing that organ playing, like it does not work for me. But maybe I am being a little too light on them here. After all, if players like Keith Emerson or Tony Banks, granted, I'm not asking for that level of quality of playing, but if they could get the tone and the sounds they did in the 1970s, 20-something years later, like, you know, whoever played keyboards for Creed on this one could have done a lot better. John Kurtzwig, you could have done a lot better, man. The only real positive I have about this song is for a band whose drum parts are often very, very basic 4/4 drum beats, there's some really good snare work in this one. It kind of pervades throughout the verses and is really the only saving grace here, but overall, just not a real good one. We had banger after banger after banger to start, and now, no, this one's just a miss. But hey, you know, at this point, you're like, what, 4 for 5 now? So that's still pretty good. That's a B. That's a solid B, Creed. You should be happy about that. Okay, before I talk about the song Illusion itself at all, I need to share one of the absolute funniest things I came across while researching for this. On the original Blue Collar release, the song Illusion, Illusion, was spelled Allusion, Allusion, which both are words, but it's very much a case of like, I don't know, it's spelled that way. And you can even tell, like, yes, he's saying like illusion, like illusory, like something not there, right? But in the bridge, especially when he repeats the line just an illusion over and over again, you can tell that he's pronouncing it with an A. Just an illusion, 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 illusion. You cannot convince me otherwise that it wasn't Scott Stapp just not knowing how to spell the word correctly. Like I said, they corrected it on the Wind Up Records version, which is unfortunately the version I have, but I had to share that because I just think that's so fucking funny. Anyway, let's talk about the song itself. Creed gets funky on this one. We start off with the bass quietly with some nasty sounding guitar here. Once again, I'm going to compare the band to Black Sabbath. Specifically the song Jack the Stripper / Fairies Wear Boots off of Paranoid. It's a pretty funky one. I know that in general, like Black Sabbath was like very inspired by blues kind of stuff, but like that song especially is just like funky and I love it. Even like the tempo and like the notes that the bass is playing sound a little Black Sabbath-y. This one's at least fun to listen to. Like some Creed songs can just be kind of slogs because they all kind of sound the same. This one sounds different and, good shit for that. I did briefly touch on the bridge earlier. He just repeats the line "just an illusion" over and over again, and you can really tell that he was trying to be Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine, because he just kind of repeats the line, just getting a little more intense every time until he's just like yelling, screaming it by the end. So I mean, for a band that was inspired a lot by the bands of the day, why not a little Rage, man? Unforgiven is a track that I unfortunately don't have too much to say about. Sorry, Phil. It is musically probably the heaviest track that we get on this album, so I'm going to be comparing it a lot to Ode, which is the other kind of upbeat, heavy one. But to kind of compare the two, heaviness a good song does not make. Ode had at least that catchy chorus to like keep me hooked throughout it, and then they came back into the heavy stuff. Here it's just kind of all heavy throughout, and the chorus is he's just saying, think I'm unforgiven in this world. I don't know, there's just not much here. And they do, once again, do the Rage Against the Machine thing here in the bridge, as he starts off just repeating the line, "No more raging innocence," over and over again. No more innocence. No more innocence. Once again, getting more and more intense, just like Zach De La Rocha and like Killing in the Name and stuff like that. And I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. It's just kind of an ugly song. I don't like it too much. And yeah, it's heavy and it like tackles that kind of primal part of the brain that just like likes heavy shit. But I don't know. It's not really anything to me. Sorry. I don't remember if I specifically mentioned while I was talking about My Own Prison, but there's 2 tracks on this album that had significant differences in them between the Blue Collar and Wind Up versions, and Sister is the second one for which that is true. Once again, a significant portion of time was cut, this time around 40 seconds from this remastered version, so hey, just like with My Own Prison, the cuts they made had to have been good, right? Well, unfortunately not. I kind of really hate the changes here, so let's talk about the original Blue Collar version. The original version had a lot of space between the verses and the choruses and everything, where you kind of got to sit back and chill, and there's almost a bit of a country bounce here, as the bass honestly gets to carry the song for a little bit. Just bass and drums for most of it, as it's playing this cool, like I said, kind of a country bounce sounding thing. It sounds neat and I love it. It's reflective and it's chill and it's the bass, man. I get to hear it. But on the remastered version, they cut some of these portions down a little bit and added like this buzzing, hovering guitar note over everything that kind of is mixed way too loudly and just drowns out the bass. So I guess even back in 1997, they knew that they did not want to go forward with the bass at all, which is unfortunate because I think it's ugly. I think it takes away from the song as you hear this note just kind of like hovering over and just like pervading and invading every other aspect of the song. So, sorry, Brian Marshall, you got done dirty. And not for the last time either. The song itself is fine. I think it's mostly about Scott Stapp kind of being the problem child that he was. Got a lot more attention from his parents, and his sister was just kind of left to just kind of do her own thing and was not necessarily neglected, but just had less attention paid to her because Scott was in so much need from the issues he had. So he feels kind of bad about that, but it's all right. I hope you both turned out okay. I hope the sister's doing fine. This is one that I just don't like. And I think the remastered version is so much worse. And because we're going with the remastered versions here for these ones, I gotta rank this one low, man. It just does not. If Unforgiven didn't do much for me, this does even less for me now, especially with the changes made that I think were all pretty much bad. I may have mentioned up top in the video that with this album and with their fourth album, Full Circle, there was only one song each that I had only heard from the two of these, and this song is that one from this one. My dad had a mixed CD that my uncle made him, and as I was just flipping through songs on it to see if there's anything cool, I realized, oh hey, a Creed song I've never heard. Awesome. And it was this one. And this is a really, really basic Creed formula song here, folks. They're finally back. This song sits firmly in the God ? Camp, as the lyrics lament those who have been taken from us far too soon, who so eloquently could never find what this life was for. The answer? It's God, folks. But yeah, just real basic Creed stuff. Starts light and picky, gets heavy, verse, chorus, bridge, the end. Nothing at all remarkable to say about this one. Yo, what was that? That's right, folks. This song's got cusses in it. Or rather, one cuss just repeated a bunch of times in the bridge. Now listen here, folks. I'm no prude. I've been known to do a cuss every now and again. You know, cusses like fuck, shit, ass, cock, ass, cunt, and ballsack. Heck, you've probably heard a couple right here in this very video already. So please, folks, just give me a few moments to clutch at some very, very imaginary pearls. One thing you may or may not know about me as a person is that I am a lifelong Christian. Shocking stuff, right? Considering how quickly I can be to say trans rights, by the way, and how I just generally try to be a good dude to everyone that I can. I've got some real big issues with the church as an institution and the kind of people that parade around their Christianity that you see in the world and online and everything today that's just really gross. But at the end of the day, I really vibe with the actual teachings of Jesus himself. You know, be good to everybody, love your neighbor, down with capitalism, you know, stuff like that. So I set the stage with all of this info just to say that even though I swear a lot in my day-to-day life, there's one word that I just choose not to say because I don't want to. And it's the gosh dang word, the GD word that gets thrown around here so easily. Now, that's just a personal choice for me. I don't judge anyone for saying it. It's just something I don't want to do myself. I mentioned earlier that like Scott Stapp is a Christian and the band has a lot of songs about God and stuff. So this just feels icky to me. I don't like it at all. Worst of all, this is their only song that features any kind of profanity whatsoever. And this is the hill that you choose to die on, Scott? What the fuck, dude? Like, taking the Lord's name in vain is one of the big major 10, dude. What the fuck are you doing? This makes me cringe, not just because of the whole taking the Lord's name in vain stuff, but just it sounds so awkward. It sounds like me when I was in middle school, the first time I realized that, hey, maybe it is okay to do a swear. And I just raw dog the F word right in the middle of a sentence, like just unprompted with a friend of mine. And she just turned to me and she said, yeah, that doesn't sound right when you do it. So, Scott, it doesn't sound right when you do it specifically. Am I harping on a small detail in the grand scheme of things? Yes, but it's a small detail that just derails the whole song for me. And just the bridge, it builds and it builds. We get the toy sounding piano and organ back. It's the one instance of acoustic guitar we get on this whole album, fulfilling a one song per album quota that we'll see carry forward for a couple albums. And it builds and it builds to nothing. No big solo, no big chorus reprise. It just builds and it literally ends with a wet fart. The song just stops, just like my review. No, this is not a cover of the Metallica song, but it would be kind of really interesting if it was. I just really want to hear Scott Stapp singing "Darkness imprisoning me." But instead, the final track on Creed's first album seems to be a song that the band likes a lot. I was doing research, and Wikipedia says that this is the only single from this album that did not receive a music video, but I completely misread that and thought that it said that this was the only single from this album to receive a music video. So I went to YouTube and I typed in one music video Creed and got the first hit was somebody who put this song to 9/11 footage. And I'm sure I'm playing it here. Just trust me, they're playing one over this footage, folks. But hey, this is the official music video now. Creed did 9/11. And one more quick story I want to tell about this song before getting into it, really. Unfortunately, this video has, at the time of recording, been lost on YouTube, but I swear it was there. I swear it was there when I was writing this script, folks. So just trust me on this one. They chose to play this song for their first television performance. They were on David Letterman, and they cut back from commercial, and he starts introducing them, saying, like, our next guest is making their television debut, and they immediately just start blasting. They just start playing straight into it as Dave is just sitting there going like, hey, 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 hey. It takes so long to get them to stop. After finally getting them to stop, Dave turns to the camera and says, making their now second television appearance, the band Creed. Say what you will about David Letterman, he was absolutely abhorrent to some of his female guests, but as a host, he was really fucking good in moments like this. This song itself is far removed from pretty much anything else we get on this album. It's bright sounding, it's happy sounding, it's a joyous, fun time. And so is the message that we should all just get along and the world would be so much better. And there's one little thing that we could do to make that happen. Ending affirmative action. That's right, I mentioned earlier that we were going to get into the politics, and Creed gets fucking political on this one, folks. I'm not gonna lie, this is the portion of the script that I've rewritten the most amount of times because, as you can tell by looking at me, I'm just 1 or 2 shades away from pure mayonnaise, so I need to be really, really careful with how I approach this. I'm going to do my best to talk about it as best as I can, being a white guy, but I want to at least start with a chorus because I think it opens up a little window into the mind and the mindset of the band. He says in the chorus, quote, I feel angry, I feel hopeless, I feel violent, I feel alone. Don't try to change my mind. And I think that kind of sucks. This is Fox News core if I've ever heard it before. I guess it's one step above Aaron Lewis screaming what the fuck at his TV. I really hate the don't change my mind line in there because it's I feel like that's a phrase that only the most narrow-minded of people, the most bigoted of people really say, like, this is the way the world is. Don't try to change my mind about it. And it just sucks. Like, please try to change my mind. If whatever I'm about to say about affirmative action is inherently incorrect, please roast me for it. Like, please change my mind. Please educate me a little bit. Be respectful. Just whatever you do, don't try to change my mind on the fact that this was a good idea of a video to make, because it objectively was. Like I mentioned, this is a really tricky topic. It's a very complex topic anyway to talk about, and affirmative action is something that you shouldn't listen to me about for being a white guy. You should listen to people of color who it affects much, much more than us. I've done my best to educate myself before this. So like I said, if I am wrong here, like I am very much treading on eggshells, trying to choose my words carefully. So please go easy on me here. I'm trying my best. Why this strikes me as feeling racist is because the kind of description in the lyrics of the fact that all these laws and policies that are really creating the true racism in our country is taking from one and giving to another. And that's not really the case. With college admissions, if, as it's so often thought about with this topic, if somebody gets accepted to a college and somebody else doesn't, that's not that person's spot. That was one spot that the college gave to the one person. So on that aspect, I feel like that's just inherently incorrect. And to stay on the topic of college admissions for a bit, especially since you see it with Harvard and the Ivy League schools, that's at least what always comes up in these affirmative action Supreme Court cases, right? A not insignificant portion of what makes up the people that get accepted to Harvard or these other Ivy League schools are what are called legacy admissions, a relative, a son, a grandson of somebody who went in the past, i.e. someone who socioeconomically could go there in the past. So by opening things up a little bit and considering other aspects of a student, not even necessarily race, background, location, just accepting somebody from a high school that wasn't like one of the best high schools, that's a good thing, I think. Originally in my script, I had written that it was an equitable solution, but the more I've researched it, it's less of an actual solution as I've seen it described as a band-aid, because it's not perfect. It is not a solution, but it is better than absolutely nothing, right? So to stick with actual just historical facts here, there are 2 Supreme Court cases I want to mention here. I didn't think I'd be throwing a fucking civics lesson in the middle of this Creed video, but here goes. Regents of the University of California versus Backey was a 1978 Supreme Court case in which the decision basically boils down to quotas are unconstitutional, but you are allowed what's called a holistic review, like I said earlier, looking at other factors other than did their dad go here and can they pay? In accepting students, which is, like I said, I think a good thing. But the other Supreme Court case I want to talk about is back in 2023, the case Students for Fair Admissions versus the President and Regents of Harvard College basically overturned that, saying you cannot look at race, you cannot look at other factors, you just accept the kid based on the grades. So, on paper, we are living in the world that one dreams about. We are in a post-affirmative action in colleges world. And you know what? Things didn't magically get better. We didn't all just line up and say, oh, thank you, Brett Kavanaugh, you saved us all. Let's all join hands and love each other, because that didn't happen, at least last I checked. I'll end off with this one statement. I feel like the people who complain the most about affirmative action are the people who would use it to kind of justify spouting off their racism and bigotry out loud, saying the quiet part out loud. And if you look, this is just one of a long line of right-wing kind of racist boogeymen. I mean, the whole thing with CRT, the DEI stuff, that clip from that podcast of the guy saying, well, if I see a black pilot, I'm just going to pray to God I get there safely, because who knows how he got that job. And that's fucked up. Anyway, these kumbaya ass lyrics just fucking suck to me. I hate this song. This is the worst song on the album. Your mileage may vary how much you can tolerate the abject racism in it, but I just fucking hate this one. Fuck one. Oh, that was a lot. I'm not looking forward to editing that at all. But we're done with My Own Prison. Overall, I was pretty impressed with Creed's first album, racism and politics aside. Like I said earlier, I thought this was one I was just going to kind of listen to and just be like, it's fine, whatever. Moving on to the ones I know and love. But honestly, I really enjoyed it. My Own Prison, Ode, and Pity for a Dime, I think are a lot of fun. Torn is great. A lot of the songs were pretty decent with kind of just a handful of stinkers in there. But overall, I think it was worth my time. You'll see on screen right here my ratings for this album. So we got one success out of the way, but could they strike lightning twice? Let's see how they follow this up with...
The dust has finally settled on the field of human clay.
Creed's second album, Human Clay, released on September 28th, 1999, with one of the most graphic design is my passion album covers I think I've ever seen. If My Own Prison put the band on the map, well, Human Clay declared the band a national landmark. Remember all those accolades I said earlier? Debuting at #1, selling over 20 million copies, a #1 Billboard single, a Grammy. Yeah, all those things happened because of this album right here. So with all these accolades, this has got to be the best one, right? Did this album truly take the band higher? Will we greet this album with wide open arms, or did they go the wrong way here? Are you ready? Let's dive into it. Okay, sorry for all those puns just a second ago. I knew right after I said, "Are you ready?" I was just going to have to play the "Are you ready?" sound bit just right after it, but you know what? I don't care. Human Clay opens with one of my least favorite concepts ever. A song that basically says like, yo, we made this fucking cool ass album. We can't wait for you to hear it. Are you ready to rock? And I can't think of any other examples of bands doing this, but I just hate the idea of it. Technically, this qualifies as a God ? Song because yes, you can take it to mean like, are you ready for this album? But it's also, are you ready for the afterlife? See, it's all those things like, do you know where you're going? All these things you're doing in life, they're just prepping you to meet the big man upstairs. A fine message, I suppose, but it's at this point that we need to talk about one of the biggest flaws of this album. See, I had mentioned in My Own Prison that they kind of started with a bunch of songs and just whittled their way down to a tight 10, whereas, here, now that they've already made it, feels like they just kind of made whatever, and I think the lyrics overall are a big step downward on this album than they were on the last one. Some fine examples that we'll see throughout the album is just choruses with just one word repeated over and over again, a bridge that's just the title repeated over and over again, one song that's just yeah, yeah, yeah repeated for the chorus. It's not great at times, folks. Yes, there's some examples of good lyricism in here, but for the most part, it's a big step down. And I mention it here because this song has one of the worst bridges I've ever seen. I think I've heard more complex lyrics in the Simple Songs videos my kid watches. No, seriously though, Simple Songs, Toodly Doodly Doo, it's a fucking bop.
Toodly doodly doo, splash!
No matter what you think of the song, these lyrics just kind of suck. I don't want to hear people counting in music unless it's me trying to figure out the time changes in a new Dream Theater song, or it's Geddy Lee counting to 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
In addition to the Let's Learn Our Numbers bridge, the lyrics in the verses and everything just kind of have this overly familiar tone. Hey, Mr. Hero. Hey, Mr. Seeker. It's like they're trying to be all buddy-buddy with us. And I don't know, it just feels juvenile and weird in kind of some of the ways that nothing else did on My Own Prison. But we do need to start a new count here. There's one small phrase that pops up time and time again in Creed music, and it's the words "my friend." We hear it here in this one where he says, "Remember your roots, my friend, they're right down below." Pure poetry, I know. But hey, I guess a call to action, because I haven't done it this long into the video yet, but leave me a comment below. Let me know how many times you think the words "my friend" pop up throughout Creed's catalog. It's probably less than you're thinking, but it also could be more. How many times could they use the word "my friend" in music? Right, my friend? All the sidetracking and shitting on the lyrics aside, this song is fine. It's kind of mid. It doesn't really commit any major sins. It's just an okay song. Not the best way to start off an album, but, you know, could be a lot worse. We'll hear some worse starting songs to other albums, so give it a pass. We'll see if it gets better or worse from here. Moving on. No, we are not talking about the Marvel animated series, but it would kind of be fun if we were. I don't know. I never watched it. This is going to be the one moment of this album where I talk about a music video, because this song was featured on the Scream 3 soundtrack, I believe, and the music video for this song was a big tie-in with that one, including Ghostface killing the members of Creed. I'm sure I'm showing it on screen, but this is just really, really fucking funny that the official video is just Scott Stapp wandering around in the woods saying like, "Hey, what's going on over here?" and then just getting abducted and murdered by Ghostface. Great stuff. But we're not here to critique the music video. We're here to critique the song itself. And this might be a bit of a hot take, but I've kind of always hated What If. I say it might be a hot take because it was a huge radio hit for them, and just looking at the official upload on YouTube, there's comments such as, "Timeless, what a tune." Pretty sure we can all agree that this crushes. And the oh so decisive, "Man, this song gets you like pumped up." I just don't like this one, folks. It's just ugly all around. It's not the longest song on the album, but it feels like minutes longer than it is. The intro feels like an hour long all by itself. I don't mind like the light kind of picky stuff that Mark Tremonti does, but this intro just feels so long. This is the closest we get to Scott Stapp like rapping. Like I can't find any comparisons of what this flow sounds like, but it just sounds like he's trying to rap here, it sounds like. And the lyrics in the second verse where he's saying like, "My stage is shared by many millions who lift their hands up high because they feel this." It's like Rollin' by Limp Bizkit in feeling. Everything about it. And then the bridge where he just says, "What if, what if, what if, what if," make it stop over and over again. Oh my God, I hate it so much. It's just so ugly, and it's not about women, but for some reason, since I was a kid, just something about it felt just misogynistic, like he was singing about women. It just, I don't know. It's just, I don't like this one at all, folks. So if we were to kind of categorize it in one of the 3 Creed genres, it's not so much of the world sucks. It's more just like people suck or certain people suck. I don't know. I don't like it. It's just ugly. It sounds ugly, and he just says "what if" so many times. I counted. My count was he says "what if" 53 times over the course of the song. They like the bridge where he just says what if over and over again so much that they do it twice. They do it in the normal bridge spot, and then they do it to end the song. It's so many what ifs in the song. He just can't stop saying it. It sounds kind of like he's saying wallet. And now that I said that, you're probably never going to be able to unhear it. But oh my God, I just don't like this one at all. And like I said, it's one, your mileage may vary. This is one a lot of people like. It was a big hit. It's one of their heaviest songs, so some people are just going to like it on virtue on that alone. But as far as a song itself, I think it sucks. I mentioned in What If that song felt misogynistic, but it wasn't really. Well, this song is misogynistic, folks. It's not so much the world sucks or that people suck, but it's like, what if women suck? I know. So they don't say it in specific terms. They just say beautiful does this, beautiful does that. But it's, you know, it's all the ways you would typically describe a woman. It's like all these things. It's describing like vapid, shallow stuff. But that's not the definition of beauty. That's not the definition of beautiful. I hate to be nitpicky here because, you know, artistic license and poetry and all that kind of stuff. But if you're describing these terrible things, don't use a word that doesn't mean the thing you're describing, right? Use vanity. It's the same number of syllables. Vanity, beautiful, 3 syllables each. Vanity is whatever the lyrics are. Vanity stripped me. Like, it can work if you do that. I mean, yes, that's a little more on the nose, but it's also closer to what you're actually singing about. And once again, I need to complain about the bridge here. Musically, the song goes from a minor key to a major key here, but this bridge feels so different from anything else they sing about so far. It's singing about how much this fucking bitch, this harpy of a woman just sucks. And then all of a sudden the chorus goes, what, are you going on a cruise? I mean, technically he is going on a cruise next month, but like, you know, what are you, Frodo Baggins leaving the Shire? If I take one more step, it'll be the farthest from home I've ever been. She told me where I'm going and it's far away from home. Well, where I'm going is far away from this song because this one sucks too. We are off to a really bad start on this album, folks. Okay, finally a song I can be a little bit positive on. This song is I'm a Shitty Little Guy song, but rather than one shitty little guy, what if everyone were shitty little guys? That's right, all of humanity are just shitty little guys. We get the album title track drop here.
The dust has finally settled on the field of human clay.
So this is the one album where we don't get a title track, so enjoy Say I guess? And I kind of do. It is the best song so far on this album, but once again, I have issues with the lyrics. If we, you know, take the idea that we're all just kind of really shitty little guys, whoever the main character is, our protagonist, our hero of the song, who's presumably just as shitty as all the other shitty little guys, is saying, who is to blame? We'll all surely melt in the rain. Say I. What makes you so high and mighty if you're just the same as everybody else? What makes you the authority on what's going to happen to us that you can say I, like you're that guy in The Mandalorian who says, I have spoken. And with the lyrics, the chorus is just he repeats say I again over and over again in the chorus. But compared to the 53 what ifs of What If, there's only 22 say I's in Say I. So restraint. You love to see it. Musically, this song breaks the established Creed meta by starting off heavy and then getting all light and picky in the verses, which is a welcome change up. I will say the main heavy riff kind of crushes. It's, you know, compared to What If even being kind of like the two heaviest things on this album so far, I like Say I so much more than What If. It gets straight to the point without making us wait 45 seconds to an intro. It's just good. I can actually hear the bass in this one, in the little pre-chorus where he's saying who is to blame will surely melt in the rain. The guitar's doing this thing up top and you can actually hear the bass kind of doing stuff with this really cool kind of slide down moment that I'm probably going to play right here. It just sounds neat. I love when I can actually talk about the bass. It's fun. And then the bridge part where this is just the guitar is just chugging. Say it's cool. You hear the voices kind of swirling around each other. You get like long held out notes on the vocals with like something distorted in the background as they kind of swirl over each other. It's trippy stuff, all while that chug is just still going. Musically, it's interesting and I like it a lot. By far, this is the best song on Human Clay so far. Hopefully a sign for the better that we're taking an upward trend here, right, folks? No, this is not a cover of the Sublime song, but it would probably be a little bit more fun if it was. This is one that I skipped a lot as a kid. On my Creed Mix CD, this was not on it from Human Clay, so sorry about that. So it's not the freshest in my memory, but I did listen to this album a lot for preparing for this. and it's still not very fresh in my memory. This is one of my least favorite tracks on the album. It's a skip most of the time alongside What If at this point. And it kind of starts this trend of songs that ask a lot of questions about life or purport to give some kind of deeper meaning, but no deeper meaning is actually given. He's talking about he was taught things the wrong way in life, and he's been going about things all wrong. Well, what's the right way? I don't know. He just says yeah, yeah in the chorus a lot. This is the yeah, yeah song of the chorus. It's the chorus is literally yeah, yeah. And I had trouble counting how many yeahs are in the song, so I can do the thing of how many what ifs in what if, how many say I's in say I, how many yeahs in wrong way. Shit, it doesn't really work that well. But I did my best, and I came up with 49 yeahs in the song. Like I said, some of the yeahs are like, yeah, hey, yeahs. And so it's like, is that 1 or is it 2? My count was 49, almost beating What If, which is kind of insane because that's a lot of repetitions of the same word. Good lyrics. This is not one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's still probably going to place higher than What If in the final rankings, but probably pretty low other than that.
Lord, I stand against the faceless man.
Before we dig into Faceless Man, I need to talk about song lengths for a second. I mentioned earlier that my tastes these days skew a lot towards progressive rock, a lot of classical, so I'm no stranger to longer songs. A 20 or even 25-minute long epic doesn't really do a lot for me these days. It doesn't impress me as much as it used to. So when I say that the songs on this album feel long, they feel so fucking long. Some of these are such a slog to get through. The average track length on My Own Prison was about 4.9 minutes per song, just under 5. The average length of songs here is 5.13, I believe. That's an increase of about 15 seconds per song on average, which might not sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but over the course of a whole album, it adds up, man. That's full on minutes that we're talking here. And I say this now because in no other song does it feel more important than in Faceless Man. Faceless Man is not the longest track on Human Clay, but it's about 5 seconds away from it. But it feels like the longest song on this album, man. This song is so overly bloated. Oh man, it's a rough one, folks. First of all, the subject matter. This is the biggest God ? Song of Creed's entire discography, to the point where you don't even need the question mark. It's just straight up about God. Scott Stapp gets high, maybe, goes outside, he touches grass a little bit, he hallucinates the face of Jesus in the water, and then sings "Stay Away from the Faceless Man," who is the devil, I guess, because, Jesus has a face and the devil doesn't. I don't know. We get our single instance of acoustic guitar on this album, filling their 1 song per album quota so far. Glad that's still a thing. And it's a fine song. For the first 4 minutes, we get our typical verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and then the song ends and it fades out right at the 4-minute mark. And then it comes right back in with a second bridge.
Next time I see this face.
That's right. They wrote 2 bridges and then I guess couldn't decide which one they like more, so it's just said, fuck it, we'll use both of them. And they both fit thematically, but it's just like, why use both? Right at that 4-minute mark, there's an actual fade out. And then once he comes back in, my eyes just glaze over and I'm just like, how much longer do we have, folks? Like I said, this song is just right around 6 minutes long, but it feels so much longer. It's defeating to listen to this. It's a slog. I feel defeated in the last 2 minutes of the song, and that is not a feeling you want to give to your listeners, folks. It's a fine song. It's inoffensive. It's, like I said, it's the biggest God song they have. So for all those of you who are saying, hey, Creed or Christian, here's this song that you can play in church probably. It just, oh man, it's a skip just by virtue of just like how soul crushing it is to actually get through. And that sucks. It's not as bad as some of the other offenders that we've had earlier in the album, but like, man, it's a different kind of bad. It feels bad to get through this one, man.
So you will never die.
For Never Die, I feel like Gordon Ramsay doing the finally some good fucking food meme, because I kind of really like this song. It was always one of my favorites as a kid. I really liked the 4 notes that just kind of pervade the song. It's really all we get through the whole song. The bridge is just pretty much a static chord held, but the rest of the song is just that really wobbly sounding 4 notes on the guitar. It's kind of hypnotic as the song goes on. But regardless, this is the most positive subject. I know we just came off of the biggest God song on the album, but this is like the most positive subject matter we have. Like, hey, it's okay to be a cringe little kid and enjoy little kid stuff. There's a reason all of my reaction videos are to mostly kids cartoons, because that's what I enjoy watching. I enjoy talking about them, and you know what? Fuck it. I'm an old man, but I can still watch that stuff. There's no shame in that, right? And like I said earlier, this is one of the most simple Creed songs, even for a band that is, declared musically bankrupt by a lot of people. But that simplicity kind of really fits in with the childlike wonder, the childlike message of it all. Never let that little kid inside of you die. Have that childlike wonder of the world. Just play 4 notes over and over again. Why not? I also want to give a quick shout out to the single measure of 5/4 during the last chorus, the only instance I know of Creed actually changing time signatures in the middle of a song. Does this make Creed prog now? It works really well, and this is easily my favorite song on the album so far. Okay, folks, we're finally here. The big one, the big #1 hit, the Grammy winner. This song made it onto a Now That's What I Call Music album, too. The 6th volume, it seems. The one that started all the Creed jokes of everybody saying like, hey, you want to hear me do the Creed guy? With arms wide open. This is the big one, folks. It kind of sucks. It's not my favorite song. It's fine. I think the lyrics are some of the best that we see on this album. Scott Stapp wrote this when he was, an expecting father. So he kind of wrote this as a tribute to his, at the time, unborn child. So like basically what's this kid gonna be like, and am I gonna be a good dad, all those kind of things. I will say I wish he picked better lyrics to start off then. Well, I just heard the news today. Seems my life is gonna change. But, if you think about it, when you first get that news and maybe you weren't expecting to become a parent, you weren't expecting the pregnancy, it can be shocking and you might not know how to feel. So I can kind of excuse the simple lyrics here, because it kind of fits with that feeling of like, oh shit, things are going to get really different. As a father of someone who's now 3, my human Play-Doh over here, it's a really, really big time of your life. So I'm not going to fault any of the simple lyrics here. Perfectly fine, excusable. And while we're still on the topic of the lyrics, the reason why I said these are some of the best lyrics on the album so far is just one simple line in the bridge where he says, if I had just one wish, only one demand, I hope he's not like me. I hope he understands. And that's like, oh man, it's another one of those, just like My Own Prison, where you in hindsight, what he was going through with his mental illness and addiction and everything, and just, God, that line hits. Like, you want the best life for your kid, and knowing that the best life is to be not turning out like you, that's some good stuff right there. It's a Creed ballad at the end of the day, so it's going to fulfill that basic formula that we laid out at the beginning, but just subject matter alone, gives it a little bonus points, even though, let's be honest, most of the time it's a skip when I listen to it. Because while this was at the time the biggest song, I think if you were to ask anybody in the world what is Creed's biggest, best song, the general popular answer would be, now this is the big one. With all the hindsight we have, this is the one that's really stood the test of time, that you'll still hear it on the radio sometimes. It was a really big hit, just not as big as With Arms Wide Open, but it's the one, man. Everyone remembers it. That Super Bowl commercial I mentioned earlier where Patrick Stewart yeets Arnold, higher.
I just threw him higher.
He just threw me high.
And it's the one Creed song I actually have like stories in my life about. My college bad movie group, whenever we would go out to eat or drive anywhere, when we'd be leaving, invariably somebody would say, "So let's go there." I had another friend who I played Settlers of Catan with all the time who thought the lyrics were, "Can you take me higher to a place where no one goes?" When I told him that the lyrics were actually, no, it's actually, "Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see?" He said, "Well, that's stupid. I like my version better." If I ask you to close your eyes and just, if I say the words Creed halftime show, I bet you're picturing that bald dude flying across the football field in Dallas, aren't you? And it's not because I just played that clip on the screen. If you kept your eyes closed like I said to, you would have thought about it too. This song is absolutely iconic, man. But to get into it, this is technically a The World Sucks song, but the most positive World Sucks song we're ever going to get, really. This song doesn't really offer up any ways to make the world better. It just says, wouldn't it be nice if it was nice? And you know what? Yeah, Creed. It would be nice if it was nice. It'd be really nice if it was nice. I really don't think I have a single bad thing to say about this song, folks. It doesn't top my list, but it comes damn near close. It's fun to listen to. It's upbeat. It's really good. I shit on the bad lyrics in some of the other songs. This is another one of those that has just kind of like childlike wonder stuff going on. But you know what? It's excusable. You're dreaming of a better world, a magical golden place. But it's just a really good, positive, fun, happy song. And to top it all off, we get a second My Friend to add to the counter. Yeah, we got 2 on this album, folks. We're getting up there in My Friends, my friends.
But my friend, I'd sacrifice all those nights.
Now, earlier, I played some clips of some content creator friends who I asked their general thoughts on Creed, as well as what is Creed's best song. But I also asked my dad whose fault it is that I got into Creed in the first place by walking into his local Best Buy and giving this a purchase because he heard a song or two on the radio. And my dad said higher. Or at least he would have if he actually knew the title. He called it Streets of Gold, I think. So, hey, Dad, Streets of Gold, easily the best song on Human Clay so far. It's a bop. If somehow you haven't heard it, this is one of the ones to listen to. But once again, it's so iconic and like in the zeitgeist. Like even people who don't know Creed know this song, that I find it just really, really difficult that someone would have never heard this one. Just a little content warning for this one. This song does feature mentions of SA, and we will be talking about that in the discussion. So if that's a topic that makes you feel uncomfortable, skip to the timestamp that's on the screen here. All right, folks, we got 2 songs left. We're past the biggest hits. Let's see how they end this album out. And the second to last song is the longest song on the album, clocking in at 6:04, just a couple seconds longer than Faceless Man, but feeling so much more deserving of that runtime. Wash Away Those Years is a pretty good song that I'm going to endlessly nitpick about here. This might be the longest discussion I have on a single song on Human Clay, but I get in the weeds here, so just get ready for that, folks. It's paced so much better than Faceless Man. It builds to a crescendo throughout. It doesn't repeat bridges like Faceless Man does, or give us 2 different bridges. It starts off really, really slow. But what sticks out like a sore fucking thumb here are these just absolutely just blasting shouted lyrics across this sparse, quiet backdrop. And what is he singing about? Well, here. Yikes. Yeah, thankfully I'll say up front that for the most part, the concept of somebody being assaulted is treated very seriously here, at least the way I choose to interpret the song. But what's his solution for when something like this happens? Just have a good cry about it. That'll make everything better. So that kind of sucks. That's not great. But, Scott does, at least to my interpretation, like I said, deal with it in the chorus a little bit with the words, "My anger's violent, but still I'm silent." Why? Are we still talking about the same person? Why are you still silent? Why aren't you going to go get that motherfucker who did it? Like, have some conviction, man. I want to compare this to Kendrick Lamar. Another wild comparison here, but one of my favorite tracks off of Damn is Triple X, in which in the first verse, somebody comes up to Kendrick saying, yo, somebody just killed my kid. You probably have a good head on your shoulders. What would you do in this situation? Here's what I'd say. If somebody killed my son, somebody's getting killed. Yeah, Kendrick's angry about it, but he's not stopping at just that. He's not staying silent. And oh man, there's some brutal lyrics there to show just how far he would go, that he would stop at nothing to get this guy, saying like, I'd catch him leaving church if that's the only lead I had. You got to end this guy. If someone has committed a crime, violated a friend of yours or someone connected to you, go get him. To compare back to One, it feels kind of like that when he says, I feel angry, I feel violent, I want to change the world, but don't try to change my mind. Here it's like, I'm angry, I'm upset this happened, but I'm not going to do anything. At least that's how I interpret it. But there's a single word that I want to harp on here. The line is in the second verse, I know this decadence is shared by millions. And it's like, that doesn't feel like the correct word there. Being assaulted is not a decadence. Decadence is a word used to describe chocolate cake, right? I looked up the definition, and it's like a reveling in luxury or pleasure, usually going hand in hand with moral decay. That's not the definition of getting assaulted, my dude. So are we to interpret that the second verse is just completely divorced from the first, and that he's just singing about being angry and violent is the decadence? In which case that's, once again, just kind of close to One, but it's just confusing. This one word decadence is just throwing me off. It's like he heard a big word and wanted to put it into a song, and it's just the wrong word. But we've all been there. I did the same shit that exact same year, except I was 9 years old and in 4th grade, and I used the word approximate in a paper at school because I thought it meant exact. And you know what? I got like a C on that paper, and she marked that word saying, this is wrong. Only use words you know the definition to. So Scott, only use words you know the definition to. Like I said, I'm nitpicking this song so much, but I do think it's one of the best songs on the album. Like I said, it builds really nicely. If you can get past just like the shout, absolutely full blast lyrics over like no musical backdrop, it's, it builds well. Like I said, it feels a lot more worthy of its 6-minute runtime than Faceless Man did. It's a good song. Yes, I know I'm just saying that crying is not a good solution, but when someone has gone through something, you gotta just cry, man. There's a catharsis to it, right? There's a release, and you can feel a little better. But get that motherfucker who wronged you.
There's a peace inside our soul.
Okay, this has been a long recording session, and I'm feeling kind of done with Human Clay, so we got one more song, so I'm just gonna review this one in like 5 words or less. Ready? It's okay. Kind of boring, though. And there we have it. That is Human Clay, Creed's second album. I will be really honest, going into this project, before really giving any of these like a big re-listen, I kind of just assumed that Human Clay was going to far and away be my favorite one. But honestly, in a shootout between this and My Own Prison, I'm taking My Own Prison. A lot of the songs on this one are just kind of slogs to get through, boring stuff, songs I just don't care about, songs that are ugly, songs I don't want to listen to, which is not a good thing for the album. Even like the biggest hit from this album, like at the time, is just like a kind of boring little ballad that just I get skipped over because the best song on the album is right after it. For an album that sold as well as it did, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a slog. I don't like it. I like the artistry of My Own Prison a lot better. So there it is. Hey, on screen right here, you're going to see my rankings for this album. And here you're going to see the rankings for both My Own Prison and Human Clay added together. Here's where things stand right now. Now let's move on to Creed's third album, Weathered, released on November 20th, 2001, with the most graphic design as my passion album cover I've seen since I introed Human Clay 30 minutes ago and said this exact same joke. Seriously, folks, just look at these two album covers side by side. They're almost Lovecraftian in their grotesque allure, summoning the most maddening of thoughts. Like, who thought this would be a good idea for an album cover? Twice. Seriously though, if My Own Prison was the scrappy album that could, and Human Clay was the band truly planting their flag on the ground, Weathered is that, but more. They really put their whole Creed-ussy into this one, for better or for worse. And it really is for better and for worse. We will see both the highest highs and the lowest of lows so far for the band. Also the band's longest and shortest songs in this one. This one's a roller coaster, folks. Buckle up. I'm going to bring up the average length per song statistic here up front just because I think it's interesting. It kind of informs things going forward. And this one actually beats out My Own Prison for shortest average length per song, right at around 4.5 minutes. Who knows? Maybe it's my fault. Maybe they watched the first half of this video, heard how much I bitched about how long the songs were, built a time machine, and went back and told themselves to cut the songs a little shorter on this one. It's a possibility. Whether it also features the first ever lineup change for the band, with bassist Brian Marshall leaving. Who knows? Maybe he felt a little underappreciated. Who could blame the guy? So in this album, he is replaced by nobody. That joke I just made about the bass being underappreciated, it kind of wasn't a joke, actually. Mark Tremonti did record bass parts for this album, for better or for worse. Pretty much just for the worse. The bass is pretty much non-existent on this one, folks. I will bring it up in a single song, but it's because it sounds bad, and I hate it every time I hear it. Other than that, it's basically just a non-factor on this one. So for all intents and purposes, and then there were three. Wait, damn it, that's a Genesis reference. Shit. So let's finally dive into this one. After the insane success of their most recent album, will I find myself standing here with them, or are there signs of laziness and complacency? But if there's one thing I know for sure, I certainly am feeling weathered by this one. Am I right, folks? Let's dive in. Creed immediately starts this album off with a statement. This isn't going to be the same Creed you're used to, folks. We got songs in 6/8 on this one. That's right, for the first time, I think, ever, we have a song that's not in 4/4. Daring, aren't we? And before we talk about the song itself, we have to use our one music video pass on this one to just talk about the sheer artistry that is the Bullets video. I mean, just fucking look at this thing, man. Oh my God, I have no words. Just look at it, folks. This is insane. I know that CGI around the time was bad, but oh my God, this is, the album covers are starting to make sense now. I would highly recommend checking out this whole video because it's insane, it's weird, and I kind of love it. It's an absolute disaster. Go watch it. Anyway, onto the song itself. This song is metal as fuck, yo. Like, this is the heaviest song Creed has put out so far, and the lyrics are brutal and violent as well. The lyrics conjure up these mental images of this barren, desolate Mad Max landscape where these mindless, cowardly figures come after our main hero protagonist of the story because he has something they don't. A life and a reason to live. That's pretty fucking brutal, dude. Except that's not really what this song is about, actually. Apparently, these lyrics were written in response to criticism levied towards the band after Human Clay saying the band sucks, kind of just the basic stuff there. And I kind of get it. When anything gets popular enough, of course it's going to draw haters. Some valid criticism, some bad faith criticism, yes, but criticism nonetheless. And hey, I'm half expecting if this video does half decently to see some bad faith comments in the credits too. Hi guys, love you. But seriously though, it really changes fundamentally how I view this song. Cause picturing the Mad Max whole kind of thing, the lyrics, at least look at me when you shoot a bullet through my head. That's pretty fucking intense, dude. But when you realize that he's just talking about people writing bad reviews, oh, at least look at me when you shoot a bullet through my head. It really sounds pathetic. The rockstar life made you soft, Creed. This is just piss baby stuff, dude. If you just don't pay attention to what the song's about, it's a pretty good song. I'm glad they were inspired to write it, but at the same time, it just feels so pathetic and whiny when you realize what it actually is about. I mean, what are they going to complain about next? Someone just cut me off in traffic. At least look at me when you shoot a bullet through my head. This store didn't take my coupon. It only expired 1 day ago. At least look at me when you shoot a bullet through my head. People are leaving mean comments on my video. At least look at me when you shoot a bullet through my head. And this whole message just pervades the whole song, man. Even into the bridge when he sings this. I guess it's kind of both the world sucks and I'm a shitty little guy, except I guess in this case it's the world sucks and it's turning me into a shitty little guy because nobody likes me. And it's weird because, like I said, this song kind of rips at its core. I kind of like it, but I just can't. There's just something in my head that's just holding it down for me because I realize like how kind of entitled it all kind of is. Once again, it's very much a Your Mileage May Vary song. You might love it just because of how heavy it is, and that's, hey, what honestly saves it for me from being just a complete failure. But I don't know, just it's fine. And on track 2, Freedom Fighter, Creed continues the 6/8 trend. It's weird. Is this whole album going to be in 6/8? Well, no, but it's weird that just the 2 songs that are not in 4/4 are just back to back right next to each other on this one. This is also Creed's shortest song of their entire discography, clocking in at 2 minutes and 36 seconds long. This song feels pretty similar to Bullets, actually. It's pretty heavy, and it's pretty much a the world sucks kind of thing, but where they differ is rather than in Bullets, where it's, oh, the world sucks, I'm a shitty little guy, this one's like, the world sucks, and I'm a big, strong man, and I'm gonna take the fight right to the enemy, America! The song does feel pretty overt in specifically mentioning wanting to commit acts of religious by literally mentioning the words holy war in the chorus, which feels gross, but at the same time you realize, hey, November 2001, post 9/11 America, it feels right at home. Except when you think about it, they couldn't really have written, recorded, and produced a full album between September 11th and November of a single year, right? Which means that they would have had to have this war crime anthem just like in the can, ready to go before 9/11, which, oh my God, it's all making sense now. They knew. Creed did do 9/11. Oh my God, the signs were all there. That one video with the 9/11 footage, somebody knew. They're trying to send a message. Jet fuel can't melt open arms. All joking aside, the kind of crusade, holy war imagery just feels really gross to me. And this is the one song I'm going to mention the bass because I think it sucks. Just kind of listen to this. Yeah, the tone sounds bad. It just, oh, I don't like it at all. It's a blessing that the song is as short as it is because this one sucks, folks. Before we hop into this next song, I want to play a little bit of a mini game with you. I want you to leave a comment right now telling me what you think this next song is about. It's titled Who's Got My Back? And keep in mind that the first track on this album was a dark, violent power fantasy about being persecuted, and that the second song on this album was a dark, violent power fantasy about doing the prosecution. The song's titled Who's Got My Back? Take a big guess as to what this one's about. This is insane whiplash here, going from the shortest song in their entire discography to the longest, this super in-your-face violent anthem to this quiet, pensive, honestly kind of thoughtful sound to lead here. This is the closest Creed has to an epic, clocking in at right around 8.5 minutes long, and let's see what they do with it. The song starts off with a Cherokee prayer, followed immediately by some very light Mark Tremonti picking, and then blessedly, thankfully, some actually really light Scott Stapp vocals. I know, I didn't think you could pull this off after the sheer Neanderthal shouting at the start of Wash Away Those Years, but here we are. Good job. And this song really takes its time to breathe and build up. It's 4 minutes until we actually get like heavy electric guitar hit. And when that chorus hits and he yells, "Who's got my back now?" It's a pretty good moment of catharsis, actually. Honestly, with how long this song is, it's shocking that it's not a skip most of the time I listen to this album. It really uses its runtime well to build. It never really feels boring. It's a legitimately really good song. I will say the title line of Who's Got My Back Now feels a little bit cheesy, like they could have thought of something better to say there. The rest of the song is pretty thoughtful and pretty decently well written, but just that one line of Who's Got My Back, just, I don't know, you could have done just a tiny little bit better. But it does kind of go hand in hand with the message, the whole Cherokee prayer and, feeling like the world you know and everything you're about has been taken away from you, leaving you with nothing, really. It's good stuff. Who's got my back? Well, nobody, apparently, but it would be nice if somebody did. Poor Faceless Man. This song is about 2.5 minutes longer, but it feels like 2.5 minutes shorter than that one. That song was not the worst, but it's just going to catch such a bad rap throughout this whole video for just being like the poster child for a bloated mess. Oh, the song's great. But yeah, after kind of bumbling out the gate just a little bit, this song lets me know that things are gonna be okay. Probably. Right? right? Okay, never mind. They follow their biggest, most thoughtful song ever by just the most butt of butt rock. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything here. This, I think, is Creed's worst song so far, finally dethroning One as the worst song, and I am so excited to tell you why. This song is thematically closest to a The World Sucks song, but honestly, if you really pay attention to the lyrics, it's not really about anything. They spend all the verses telling you what the song isn't about. It's not about race, age, or God. But what is it about in the choruses? Mind telling us? That doesn't really answer things. Musically, the song is really boring. It's pretty much the first Creed song I can think of that doesn't really stray from the root chord so much. Yes, it dances around the D a little bit, but it's pretty much just, you can just strum the D power chord throughout the whole song and pretty much be fine, I think. Okay, I'm sorry, I gotta do this. I never talk about other content creators in my videos. I want to make my own stuff and leave my own mark on everything, but I gotta talk about one and steal a bit right here if you'll let me. I really like Todd in the Shadows, and one of my favorite bits that he does in his year-end list are the best and the worst 2 seconds of music of the year. And this song easily has the worst 2 seconds of any Creed song ever. Are you ready for it?
This is not about sex.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so cringy and I love it. Why did they do that? Why did he just yell sex right in the middle of the song? Oh, it sucks. It sucks. And it makes me so happy because it's so fucking bizarre. It's so much of a joke, I don't think I could make any jokes about it. But that's not going to stop me from trying. Number 1. This moment really answers the question, what would it be like if subliminal messages were put into songs by people who didn't realize that you're not supposed to hear the subliminal message? Number 2. He really delivers it like a 4th grader who's just learned what the word meant and was just waiting for his mom to not be around so that he could just yell it at the top of his lungs just to say what it feels like, except she was just one room over and heard it and came in and grounded him anyway. Number 3. Be on the lookout for my next hit video, An Hour of Silence, occasionally broken up by Scott Stapp yelling, except I lied, and one of those statements wasn't a joke. If you look in the description of this video, you'll find a link to 60 Minutes of Silence, occasionally broken up by Scott Stapp yelling, I'll publish it publicly a little bit after this video comes out, but for those of you who are watching it pretty much as soon as it comes out, that's a little bonus for you. So now we need a new joke. Number 3. I heard they accomplished this take just by having Scott Stapp turn on the TV to Cinemax late at night and just describing what he saw. All joking aside though, how about one more joke? I'm really sad that this song came after With Arms Wide Open, so I couldn't just say that he wrote that song to brag that he's had at least once. Okay, enough with the sex thing, but I am gonna pepper it here and there throughout the rest of the video, so keep your ears open, folks. I've already shit on the lyrics of this song just a little bit for kind of being about nothing, but I'm gonna shit on them just a little bit more. See, I've clowned on many a Creed phrase, many a bridge, many a verse, many a chorus, but there's something in this track that just kind of beats them all. I'm gonna re-recite a couple passages that I kind of clowned on earlier and just kind of see how this one compares to them. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Countdown to the change in life that's sure to come. Okay, not the worst thing ever, a little juvenile, but you know what? It gets us there. Well, I just heard the news today. Seems my life is gonna change. Okay, I had a whole segment where kind of talking about how I felt that wasn't great, but it kind of fits in with the whole feeling of the song, so it gets a pass. What do signs have to offer? Can't you see them? See the signs, you see them, all the signs, we see them. Oh, fuck, did I just have a stroke? There's really not a single redeeming thing about this song. Musically, it's basic. The lyrics suck. It's about nothing. It's got the thrown in there. And I don't know. It's just, but it's so fascinating though. It's like a train wreck that you can't look away from. This is the Tommy Wiseau of rock music. Terrible, but mesmerizing at the same time. And yes, I know that Worst Band Ever, Butcher's Pink Floyd, might be worse on a technical level, but come on, man. This just sucks. And I love it. It's so bad, and it's so much fun, but it's so bad. But it will be beaten, so keep watching, folks.
But I'm down to one last breath.
If Human Clay had back-to-back powerhouses with Arms Wide Open and Higher, here starts Weathered's version of that with One Last Breath. This was their second and I believe final song to be featured on a Now That's What I Call Music, featured on Now That's What I Call Music Volume 11. This is a really typical Creed formula type of song, firmly in the genre of I'm a shitty little guy, and maybe the most musically basic to boot. Yes, I know that we just talked about Signs that was just pretty much one static chord throughout the whole thing, but this is the pop song chords. This is canon throughout pretty much the whole song. It's super simple, and we really haven't heard Creed do this before. Just a really, really basic, pretty much pop song with a bit of a butt rock filter on it. But just like with Pity for a Dime earlier, where just one good aspect of the song can really just carry it, I need to talk about the lyrics here. See, like I was talking about with Signs, I tend to clown on their music a lot with occasional spots of goodness here and there, but never once have I described a single Creed lyric as being clever. But that all changes today, folks. The hook of this song, I think, is legitimately very clever.
I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet is so far down.
That's some good stuff right there. And it legitimately saves the song. You know, you get your typical verse, chorus, bridge, quiet chorus, loud chorus. And it's with those pop song chords, it's just very much your basic song. Hell, it's even pretty much exactly 4 minutes long, which was the average length of a pop song at the time. I should hate this. This should be terrible to me, but just the strength of that one line alone, I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. When that loud chorus hits and he's shouting at the top of his lungs, that's some good shit right there. And I don't know what it is about it. And I just can't help but love this song. Like I said, it's just a basic pop song basically, but here we are. And I think it's the best song on the album so far. And they follow that up with what might have been the biggest radio hit from this album. I'm unsure if it was technically One Last Breath or My Sacrifice, but to me, My Sacrifice felt like it was more everywhere, more played. I think I mentioned earlier, but when this album came out, I feel like SmackDown and Raw, the WWE stuff, were promoting this one a lot. I tried to find videos of the promos for it, but when I search My Sacrifice WWE, it's pretty much just like tributes to like the Attitude Era and Kurt Angle and Kane and all those wrestlers. And so some goes hand in hand with wrestling for this one. And we finally get another My Friend in this one. Hello, my friend. We meet again. It's been a while. Where should we begin? This song feels hopeful in a way a lot of Creed songs don't typically sound. I always figured this song was about two friends or lovers reuniting after a long time together. That's very apparent in the lyrics, but according to Wikipedia, which is a valid source, folks, Stapp wrote this song about his addiction and the reunion here not being between two friends, but between himself and Clarity, which I think is really cool and kind of beautiful, actually. I originally had this whole spiel written about how, kind of just like with Who's Got My Back, the phrase "my sacrifice" feels out of place. Like, what's so sacrificial about two people meeting each other after a long period of time? Like, what was he sacrificing? But when you realize that the song is about addiction, it makes a lot more sense. The pieces of yourself that you sacrifice to the addiction, you know, when you finally have that moment of clarity and come back to your senses, you realize what you have sacrificed, and it all makes sense. And you know what? I'll give you this one, Creed. All good. I don't have too much to say musically about this one. I think for the most part, the song is in a major key, but changes to minor in the bridge. And man, when those like really dissonant sounding minor chords hit in the bridge, it legitimately sounds like Danger put in musical form. It's pretty good shit, and another pretty good song on this album. Like I said, these were two of the biggest songs back to back, One Last Breath and My Sacrifice. I think if you asked me when I was younger, when I was in my peak Creed liking days, I would have told you I liked My Sacrifice better, but something about the simplicity and the structure and just, man, that once again, the strength of that one hook in One Last Breath, I think I'm gonna say I like One Last Breath better here, folks. It's, hey, as with everything else, your mileage may vary, but if I gotta rank the two against each other, it's gonna be One Last Breath. But you know what's better than both of those songs put together?
You stand here with me.
Yes, folks, Stand Here With Me is Creed's best song. You can just stop the video now because we are not beating this one, but I hope you'll at least stick around to let me explain why. I think with Higher, I mentioned that it felt like they kind of took the idea of one, but just kind of did better with it. And now I feel like in Stand Here With Me, they kind of took the ideas of Higher and once again, just, you know, took it higher and did it better once again. Stand Here With Me is like a full minute shorter than Higher, which means it's easier to get through, it's more digestible, it doesn't have that quiet chorus to kind of slow things down right before ramping back up like Higher does, so points for that. Even to go all the way back to Torn on My Own Prison. I mentioned I was a big fan of oohs, ahs, and yeahs and stuff, and while I think they were terrible in that song, they fucking hit here, dude. I love in the chorus when he repeats "You stand here with me," all the instruments but the drums cut out, and I just love all the little things of the song. They just add together to make such a good experience. And finally, we get another good guitar solo to kind of keep making references of things that this song does for other songs, but better, well, technically not better than Pity for a Dime, but pretty much the second best we're ever going to get, folks. Like, nothing else so far, aside from Pity for a Dime, which I already mentioned, comes close to this. Like, The Virgin Higher, a measly 4 measures that just reprises the same melody we've been hearing throughout the whole song. The Chads, Stand Here With Me, 12 measures of Mark Tremonti just going fucking ham. Leading into one of the best outros Creed has ever had, where just you get voices swirling around each other, like, well, kind of like a round, but it's just so cool. And if none of that convinces you that this song is good, I honestly don't know what will. This is pretty much the best butt rock has to offer. I'm finding that Creed is legitimately at their best when they're just being positive and happy and sappy. Yes, it's a tiny little bit cringe, but it's also just a lot of fun, and it's not a slog to get through like so much of their other shit. Anyway, like I said, it is not getting better than this one, folks. But like I mentioned, it will get worse than Signs, so stay tuned just for that. The next album has something just utterly fucking atrocious, and I can't wait to talk about that one too. And we go directly from one of Creed's peppiest, most happy, positive songs to one of their most miserable, but it's kind of a good miserable, folks. This is up there with Say I for like the biggest I'm a shitty little guy song they could possibly have, with some absolutely fucking gnarly lyrics. This body horror imagery in the lyrics is so fucking gnarly and gross. I love it so much as a big horror fan. It honestly feels like stuff that you'd see on a black Magic the Gathering card, if anything. And the music kind of matches the tone that's set here. This is the slowest tempo song we've gotten on this album since Who's Got My Back, and it really just feels like that this kind of slow lurching is all that the protagonist can manage. But despite all that, what's the message we get in the bridge? Good, positive message for this absolute downer of a song. And once again, it feels like another look into Scott Stapp and his mental state, just pushing through it all, man. Man, like I said earlier, I hope you're doing good, dude. I don't have much else to say musically about this one. It's just a fine, decent, good little number. But one little curiosity I want to point out here is just this one tiny little guitar lick sounds a lot like the On and On We Sing This Song from the previous song, Stand Here With Me. I don't know. I can't unhear it. This one's pretty good.
No reason to hide.
Okay, last 3 songs on the album, and shockingly, 2 of these last 3 were released as singles. Unfortunately, I don't have too much to say about any of these last 3, but we'll get through them good enough. Hide, I think, is the best of the 3. I don't know. It's just kind of fun. I kind of like it. It's not the best song, but it's not offensive either. But it does give us the final My Friend of the discography. Look, I know I set up this whole My Friend thing to be much bigger than it was, for us to just peter out at 4 with more than a full album left to go, but you gotta put the bits in there, folks. This video is just a big fucking nesting doll of bits, so I'm sure something I set up earlier is gonna pay off in the next one. Don't Stop Dancing, blessedly, is the song I have the least to say about on this album. It's another kind of take on like Never Die of the don't let the child inside your heart ever stop dancing, just keep being that cringe little kid that you definitely are. The only other thing of interest here is that Scott Stapp's sister, presumably the sister from the song Sister, makes an appearance here singing backing vocals.
Although I heard I must be strong, because inside.
And I really don't have too much else to say about it, except this one tiny little joke that I wrote that I think is kind of funny, where I said that originally that the planned chorus of this one was probably, at least look at me when you shoot some bullets at my feet.
Hush, my love, now don't you cry.
And finally, Creed seems to have forgotten that they have a very strict one acoustic guitar per album quota, and they probably just panicked and said, oh shit, we gotta record something really quick, and made this. This song, as the title implies, is a little bit of a lullaby. Now to Scott Stapp's now born child. I think this is a much nicer tribute than With Arms Wide Open because it's less embarrassing than that song. And it's just kind of cute, sweet. But I will say it's a little bit long for what it is. Yes, I know that sometimes it can take babies a long time to go to sleep. I've been there. But conversely, I also don't know a single baby that could sit through an entire 3-minute and 21-second song. I mean, you gotta shorten it, folks. This should be Creed's shortest song. I mean, I guess it's a blessing that the war crime anthem from before is the shortest, but this should honestly be about a minute long, folks. I mean, there's a reason why Blink-182's Happy Holidays, You Bastard is just 40 seconds long. Can you imagine if he just kept adding verses for more and more holidays? New Year's, Easter, Halloween. What would that even sound like? It's Halloween and I fed my dog some fucking Hershey's chocolate. Halloween and I fed my dog some fucking Hershey's chocolate. Anyway, like criticisms about the length aside, it's fine. It's a pretty nice little song to end the album, and I don't mind it. And that's Weathered, folks. Like I described it earlier, truly an album of highs and lows, but I think the highs are high enough and the lows are at least entertaining enough that I can easily say that this is my favorite Creed album. We had some absolute dog shit to start the album, some pretty dang solid stuff in the middle, and then some kind of fine, harmless filler to close things out. Anyway, like all the other ones, here are the rankings for every song on this album. And here are the rankings for the 3 albums combined. And while I have the rankings for these 3 albums up here, I want to take a quick off-camera break to talk about another album. Kinda. After Creed broke up in 2004, they put out a greatest hits album. Understandable, considering things were not looking good for a reunion. Of course, I'm recording this segment 2 reunions later, so take that for what you will. This greatest hits album contained 13 songs, 4 from My Own Prison, 4 from Human Clay, and 5 from Weathered. My biggest complaint here is the length of this thing. 63 minutes? A CD can hold about 80 minutes of music, so you're shorting us here by about 17 minutes. Come on now, it's not like they didn't have other songs you could just cram onto here. Anyway, I figured it would be fun to look at what songs were included there and compare them to my rankings. Here they are. But I also figured, what would a Tallman-created Creed greatest hits at this point look like? Filling up as much of the disc as I could, of course. So if we cut it off here after the top 15, we get our track list. And it's a pretty good track list too. You end up with a good mix of tracks from all 3 albums, with 5 from My Own Prison, 4 from Human Clay, and 6 from Weathered. This lines up pretty well with how I personally rate the albums too. So if you were looking to make a roughly 79.5 minute long playlist featuring Creed's best songs from their first 3 albums, this is your best bet. And spoilers, but only 1 track from their 4th album would have made the cut here, which, hey, speaking of, I guess let's segue to Creed's 4th and, as of the time of recording, final album, Full Circle, released on October 27th, 2009, and unfortunately comes with an album cover that does not satisfy the rule of 3s for the graphic design is my passion trend we've been seeing for the last 2, so terrible album just for that. Being released almost a full 8 years after their last one, and Creed being firmly established as the butt of many a music joke, this album managed to debut at number 2, which is honestly pretty impressive. Good for them, seriously. Brian Marshall is back on the bass for whatever that's worth. I'm not going to mention the bass a single other time for the rest of this video, so shoutouts to you, Brian, I guess. One immediate comparison one can make to kind of determine the success, longevity of this album, especially when compared to their last album, Weathered, is the number of singles released. I haven't really been focusing on what songs have and have not been released as singles, except in the cases where it was a big hit, but Weathered had 6 of its 11 tracks released as singles. That's over half the album. This album, containing 12 tracks, only had 3. So, I don't know, maybe it didn't have the best legs, maybe it wasn't as good, but hey, we won't know until we fully dive in. Does this album truly stand the test of time? Did the band manage to overcome all the jokes, or will we be left eating bread of shame? Yep, that's an actual song title here. Buckle up, folks. I'm gonna start here by talking about some of my overall problems with the album as a whole because they are immediately prevalent, like an in-your-face kind of way. This album just sounds like shit. Absolute dog ass. Complete and utter butt cheeks. And I want to say it's mostly in the mixing, but it's also the tone of everything. The guitar itself is way too loud, way too forward. Of course, you can't hear the bass. I told you I wasn't going to mention it again, so this technically doesn't count. But the guitar oftentimes sounds fake. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Just listen to this opening riff from Overcome and tell me if it sounds correct. I sent this song to a couple friends who listen to music a lot and know what good music sounds like and asked, how does it sound to you? And the consensus was basically, I can't really put my finger on it, but it doesn't sound right. I went and I scoured just about everything I was listening to around this time, like plus or minus like 3 years, and I can't find anything that sounds like this. This sounds uniquely awful to me. And Scott Stapp is a bit of a paradox here because he technically sounds better than he ever has with, better recording technology and some of the best studios money can buy. But that also is a detriment, hence the paradox, because I pointed out at the very beginning of the video that one of the most defining characteristics of Creed was Scott and his wildly weird voice, right? So when you have better technology and are mixing him in a way that doesn't make him sound like a complete animal, you lose something there. Creed becomes one of those bands that I can no longer pick out of a lineup anymore because they just sound like generic music at this point. Yes, there was always something about them that sounded a little generic. They had enough distinguishing features to where you could always pick them out of a crowd. And now, that's all gone. Anyway, I hope the points I'm making there prove themselves to you as you hear the snippets here and there of all the songs throughout this album, but let's finally talk about Overcome. Overcome was the lead-off single for Full Circle, and if I had to compare it to anything else, I would compare it to Bullets from Weathered. It was the lead-off song of the album, it was pretty heavy, and it kind of has the same message as well. It has the same kind of self-pity that Bullets had, being kind of pathetic, like, oh, everyone makes fun of me, but rather than just kind of taking it, Overcome is like, listen here, motherfucker, I'm gonna beat that ass. I think I did use the word entitled when talking about Bullets, like he feels entitled with these lyrics, but here he just straight up comes out and says it. Another thing I will say about this album as a whole musically is that we get a lot more guitar solos. On this album, more so than any other, Mark Tremonti just kind of goes for it. And we get a pretty big solo here, but it's just kind of shreddy without really doing much for me. I don't know, this doesn't impress me anymore. The song is painfully generic, but it did grow on me over time as I was listening to this album over and over again, just because so much of the rest of the album is so much worse than this. So this just kind of gets raised on a pedestal just by proxy. I don't know, it's fine, it's not great. But I will say, despite the fact I was talking about the recording technology for the vocals being a lot better, I cannot understand a single word Scott says after "I may be crazy, but..." Between this and that one ending bit from Signs, is this now the second stroke that Scott has had while recording songs? Hey kids, have you ever wanted to hear Creed do Gent? No? Too bad. During my discussion of Weathered, we firmly set Signs as the low bar to beat. Well, folks, that bar has just been lowered because Bread of Shame, I think, is absolutely Creed's worst song. I mean, just listen to this. All the issues I had with Overcome sounding terrible sound so much worse here. A lot of Creed songs have the guitars tuned down to drop D tuning, which if you don't know much about music, that's not too far away from this just the standard guitar tuning. It's no big deal, a lot of bands do this. This song is in the key of G. You're going down more than a full fifth from that drop D, and it just, oh man, this sounds awful. It sounds like the guitar is holding back the urge to puke with every note. This is yet another I'm a Shitty Little Guy song where it's like, oh, everyone's making fun of me. Kind of like Overcome, except while Overcome was, I'm gonna kick that ass. Bread of Shame is like, I guess I'm gonna take it. I guess I'm gonna eat that shit sandwich on that bread of shame. What is bread of shame anyway? That's such a dumb phrase, and it's the way he says it in the chorus, it sounds like he was so proud of it, like, yes, this is pure poetry. But it's just, It sounds so dumb. Way back at the start of this video, about a week ago now, I mentioned that there was a single song I had heard from this album, and this was it. I didn't remember any of it because I had memory holed it all the way down, and that just the memories just came dredging back up for this. Oh man, like I didn't remember how bad this was, and it's shocking to me how bad this song is. It was the one I listened to because of the title. I was like, what the fuck even is this? What does this mean? I had to listen to it. So a note for you aspiring musicians at home, if you're gonna name your song something just completely buck wild, make it a banger. The band Haken, whose shirts I was wearing for some of the other segments of this video, I first listened to them because they had a song called Cockroach King, and I was like, that sounds awful. I hate cockroaches, but I gave the song a listen, and it was an absolute banger. It was an all-time great, and it got me hooked on the band, and now I've seen them 4 times in concert. So good job, Haken. You made a great song with a weird title. Creed didn't. And speaking of Haken, I'm not hating on this song because I hate gent or anything. Okay, they tend to go into some of the lower tune territory as well. Just listen to this. This sounds great. The tone to me, the production, the mix, the everything sounds awesome. I love this. I saw Animals as Leaders live for the first time last year, and I loved them too. So I don't have a problem with this down, super low tune stuff. It's just, Creed, what are you doing? No! And why I think this is so much worse than Signs by comparison is that Signs is super fun to listen to. It's just a train wreck, like I said earlier, but it's a fun train wreck. This is a miserable slog that sounds the ugliest thing. Uglier than What If, uglier than the other ugliest stuff I've talked about here. This song is dog ass. I would say don't bother giving this a listen, but the fact that it is coming in as the worst song Creed has ever made might mean you go check it out, and Godspeed to you if you do, because this song is just complete ass cheeks. No, this song makes ass cheeks seem like a compliment. This is worse than ass cheeks. What? I don't even have an apt metaphor for this because it's indescribably bad. I'm not even like really playing this up or acting. I just think this song is utterly miserable and it sucks, and it's the worst thing Creed ever made. I hope it's not topped whenever they make a 5th album. I sure to God hope it isn't. I can't even imagine what they could make that would be worse than this. You take the racism from one, the guitar tone from Bread of Shame, and like, I don't know, have Scott Stapp have another stroke while delivering the lyrics or something. Maybe that could be worse, but only time will tell if they top this in the future for an album they haven't even announced yet. Maybe if you have something that's worse than this, just cancel the full album. Just do your tour and then retire. Don't even put the album out if there's something worse than this song on there. Please, Creed, I'm begging you. Don't call it 1,000 feces. Don't call it 1,000 feces. Do not call it 1,000 feces. 1,000 Feces was the last song Creed ever released as a single. And what a whimper to go out on. This song's fake instrument of choice is the acoustic guitar. Not the only song that features acoustic guitar, but this is probably electric guitar with an effect to make it sound like an acoustic guitar that makes it not sound like an acoustic guitar, which means maybe they haven't met that quota here. Anyway, this song does not fit in with the holy trinity of Creed genres. We gotta fish up another one we haven't seen since Human Clay, and it's What If Women Suck? I know. That's right, we're doing Beautiful again. But instead of whereas Beautiful was, women are untrustworthy and vapid and shallow and everything, this one's like, this bitch, this absolute harpy of a woman is just so damn hard to understand. Women just be like that, am I right, fellas? This feels gross, this feels misogynistic, it feels like music for divorced dads. One more thing about this album as a whole that I didn't mention up top because I wanted to wait for it here is Mark Tremonti. He must have spent this entire last 8 years working on his singing voice because he has come a long way. Completely gone are the days of him being embarrassed recording in his childhood bedroom, hoping his mom doesn't catch him, and now he is fully unleashed. I don't know, maybe he figured this whole Creed thing wasn't going to work out after all and might have a future on Broadway. After all, he sounds like he could make a pretty good Tom Collins. In bridges he burned, or the way that she... Now I'm forced to look behind. I'm forced to look at you. And while still on the Mark train, he delivers another huge solo here, but unlike on Overcome, which was a big bombastic song, this one's more akin to like heavier acoustic ballad kind of, and so this kind of shreddy solo he does just really does not fit the mood at all. I think this sucks. There was no need for this solo here, or at least not this solo. Absolutely not this solo. What were you thinking, Mark? If it wasn't for Bread of Shame being so utterly abysmal, I would say that this is easily the worst song so far, but hey, Bread of Shame exists, so this at least isn't worse than that, but it is pretty bad. I hate the misogynistic lyrics. I hate the guitar solo. The only good thing about it is Mark just completely fucking going for it. Suddenly is a track so utterly unremarkable that I didn't have a single note for it when I did my first listen through of this album. In fact, when I was putting together my initial power rankings of all of the songs, I noticed I was missing one, and I was looking through everyone, counting the ones from each album, trying to figure out where I was missing. And it was this one. It was so unremarkable, I forgot to rank it. Think of what some of the other track 4s were on the other albums. We got Pity for a Dime on My Own Prison with the best Creed guitar solo ever. We got Say I on Human Clay, which was the first really good song of that album. We got Signs on Weathered, which, okay, let's not talk about Signs. And then we got this with the completely forgotten song, the furtive pygmy of the Creed discography. But I listened to the album a bunch, and I made sure to take some notes, and I'm sure I have some good things to say about this one. They are, but they in this song they. The only description I can give this one is that I think it's an I'm a Shitty Little Guy song. I don't know. Where's the break glass in case of emergency button? I've heard it said that in entertainment you can be good or you can be bad, but the only thing you absolutely should never do is bore somebody. And that's exactly what Creed has done here.
I feel it's gonna rain like this for days.
Thank God somebody finally had the balls to do a soft remake of Matchbox 20's 3 AM. This was another song that was released as a single, and it's easily my favorite of the three. Finally, we get a song that's not horrible to listen to. The acoustic guitar actually sounds like acoustic guitar here. So this is their one. This is their one, folks, the actual acoustic guitar on this album. This is maybe the least Creed sounding song that we've ever had. It's essentially just a little acoustic pop ballad, and it's fun to listen to. It's I'm a Shitty Little Guy song, but it's hopeful, bright. Yes, I know they're doing that thing where it's the metaphor of the rain being your tears and pain and everything, and we hear that all the time. This happened 11 years before Rain on Me, Tsunami from Lady Gaga, so Creed was forward-looking at least, except the whole Matchbox 20 thing that happened way before this, that basically did the same thing. I don't know. It evens out. I don't know. I like the song, but I have nothing to say about it. It's just a decent, solid song. Sometimes you don't need more than that, folks. Away in Silence is a weird one. It doesn't really fit into any of the established Creed genres, and it's explicitly about a relationship. It's about some bitch, some absolute harpy of a woman who's leaving the protagonist of the song, this innocent man who's probably not done anything wrong, and he's begging her on his knees, please stay, I'm a shitty little guy, but please. Oh, maybe it is a Shitty Little Guy song. I don't know, if I had a term to describe the genre here, cuckcore maybe? Gaslight core doesn't quite have a good ring to it like cuckcore does, but it's a lot of the lyrics in the chorus are very gaslighty. Like if you ever see a film where there's an abusive boyfriend who's, the girl's finally about to leave and he tries to get her to stay, all the lines that he says in those movies are in this song. I'm not the man I used to be. I've changed. Please come back to me. Don't walk away in silence. It feels threatening. I know we've come a long way since 2009 as far as toxic masculinity and all this kind of stuff, but just looking at it from the lens of 2024, this sucks. I described one song earlier as music for divorced dads, but this feels like music for domestic abusers. They're the only ones I can really see who would get pumped and hyped for this kind of shit. Musically, this one's trying to be another sweet acoustic ballad, which kind of just feels gross going with the lyrics, but I do have to call out this. What the fuck is happening in the chorus? Don't give up on us. Don't give up on love. It's like normal strumming patterns on the guitar were just too boring these days, so we really had to emphasize the bottom end of every chord that we strum. It's like that one friend everybody has who insists manual is the only way to drive and then proceeds to take you on the worst, most bumpiest car ride of your entire life. That's how it feels listening to this song. I absolutely hate this one, and once again, if it wasn't for Bread of Shame, this would be the new low, but it's gonna linger right above that, just right with 1,000 Faces. It's, the two are very similar, and they both suck. Fear is another track that on my first listen I really didn't have a lot of notes on. The only thing I had really written was, well, it's heavy, but it's not as bad as Bread of Shame, so automatic points for that, I guess. But I mean, that's not much to go on. Literally every other song that isn't Bread of Shame fits the second half of that description. Not as bad as Bread of Shame, right? Then I listened to it a couple times and I was like, well, my real big issue here is that there's no real big hook. The chorus isn't like catchy or anything. There's nothing to really grab onto. And then I came to realize that this was the first instance I noticed of the title not being dropped in the song. With a title as simple as Fear, you'd think it would be super easy to get in those lyrics, but they weren't there anywhere. The choruses and the verses talked about change a lot, and it honestly really got me thinking. Change is something that we all experience in our lives, okay? Like graduating high school, graduating college, finding a job, losing a job, moving jobs, moving houses, having a kid, anything and everything we do in our lives incurs change, right? And that can be scary, like really scary. Change is something that's pretty much inevitable for all of us, but it's something that we find ourselves fearing a lot. So by focusing so much on change, we're kind of focusing on the one thing that we all kind of innately fear. And I think that's kind of neat, actually. I don't know if this was a conscious choice by the band, but if it was, good stuff. I think that's the deepest analysis anyone has ever done and probably will ever do on this song. I'll take my world record now, Guinness. Before we get started with talking about On My Sleeve, I gotta tell you something about me. See, I have this really bad habit of hearing a melody in something and then just thinking like, oh, that sounds exactly like this one. Like, for example, the title screen of Castlevania Circle of the Moon? Nope, that's just the opening measure to Rite of Spring. And I hear these all the time, songs that may not necessarily reference each other, but have similar enough melodies to where I just kind of put two and two together in my head and always equate the two with each other. So I said all that to say this. What do you hear here? Okay, before I straight up say pencils down, let's hear this coming back again in the bridge, a little heavier. Okay, now pencils down. Do you know what it is? It's fucking O Fortuna. That's right, one of the most overused musical metaphors for pain, suffering, and general melodrama is here in full force. I don't know if this was intentional, but I can't help but hear it now. And with a title of On My Sleeve, you better believe he's gonna get some shit off his chest here, right? Ooh, I bet we're about to get the shittiest of little guys here in this one, man. I am so ready for this. And it's nothing. Seriously, the lyrics pretty much only equate to here, oh, I'm such an open book to everybody that it physically hurts me. I really hope the O Fortuna was just a coincidence, but the fact that it pops up a couple times and I can't help but hear it every time, I can't get the association out of my head, folks. This is a song that's about nothing, that's referencing a song that's supposed to be about the most agonizing pain you've ever felt in your life, and it's like, it's a song about nothing. But the song is so boring. If it wasn't for Suddenly, I'd say it's the most boring track on the album so far. But like, this is nothing. This is an absolute nothing of a song. Remember that whole thing I said about you can be good or bad, just don't bore me? You're doing it again. And it's not going to be the last time. But thankfully, the title track, Full Circle, is not that last time. This is a song I actually rather enjoy. I know I was complaining earlier about the instruments all sounding fake all throughout the album, and they do here, but I think it's to the song's benefit. You hear once again the really fake sounding acoustic guitar, but the way it's mixed and the way it kind of just cuts out upon itself, and when you bring the drum beat in, it makes for a pretty cool sounding beat. I really dig the vibe here. And this song is maybe the closest we're going to get to Scott Stapp sounding like the Scott Stapp of old. He sounds like he's having fun here, and for the first time on this album, I'm having fun listening to this one too. I mean, just listen to these words of the chorus. They're very cheesy, yes, but when you think about how the band started on My Own Prison as he's crying out to God and God's not even like giving him the time of day, and now that he's being a little scamp, God's looking down on him and saying, oh, they really have come full circle. I get it now. Kind of like with Fear, the song is kind of about change, things rearrange, things come full circle in your life, and sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse, but you know what? It's gonna happen. So just like with Fear, don't fear it, accept it, and just have a good time, because I know I'm enjoying this. We get a pretty good solo by Mark here, probably his best on this entire album, because it just actually fits the vibe of the song. Like this is a pretty upbeat song, so him shredding away actually pretty much fits here. I don't know, this song's pretty good, actually. I didn't think I was gonna say that for this album, but this song is actually good. I mean, I know I said that Rain was good, but this is like actually good. Rain just feels good by proxy because it's so different from everything else, which I guess technically Full Circle is pretty different as well, but it's a different kind of different, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Great song. No other jokes. No, this is not a cover of the Pink Floyd song, and no, I would not want them to try. But given the whole Dark Side of the Moon Redux thing Roger Waters put out last year, probably wouldn't be worse than that. But what we have here is the longest track off of Full Circle, clocking in at 5:56. Wow, not a single song above 6 minutes on this album. Literally every other album is in shambles. Faceless Man is absolutely crying in the corner over there. But I wish it wasn't this long because they bore me here. On my first couple listens, I didn't mind this one too much because yes, it was a little on the slow side, but the message was good at least, right? Time moves on and, time can be cruel to us as we get older and our bodies start to fail us. Time, you're no friend of mine. But then the more I listen to this one, I kind of realized that it's not even really about that. That's just a good hook that they put in the chorus to make you think it was. Because what we really have here is just kind of an I'm a shitty little guy song that's really just about nothing. The song kind of just features a big general jumble of phrases that you'd kind of come to expect from a song like this. Things like catch me when I fall, I've got nothing left to lose, and maybe the worst 2 seconds on the album.
I'm a sinner, I'm a man.
I don't know, it might be tied with the puke guitar from Bread of Shame, but, as far as lyrics go, pretty bad. And once again, just like with On My Sleeve, as he's saying, like, I'm an open book and I'm gonna tell it like it is, and I gotta get this off my chest and say it. He says over and over again, it's about time I speak my mind, but he doesn't. He just kind of says, like, time you're no friend of mine, which, like I said, is a pretty decent hook, but it's like, is there anything more aside from us just feeling bad for you? Do you need that dime? Do you still need that dime? With inflation, do you need a quarter at this point? I don't know. I think the most frustrating thing about this song is the fact that the words mine and friend are so close to each other, but we don't get a my friend anywhere in this song. You could have made it 5, Creed. You could have had one on this album, and you blew it. And that's honestly what makes me the most upset here. So this is the point where on my first initial draft of the script here, I just completely burned out and I just stopped for about a month and then came back and finished it later. And with 2 songs left, come on, Tallman, you could have done it, man. But okay, refreshed, a month later, I'm sure I wrote some real good stuff about this one, right? With fresh eyes, fresh ears, and a fresh mind. No. Okay, I'll say some stuff about it. First of all, it's such a cliche line, keep fighting the good fight. It sounds like something your drunk racist uncle says on Thanksgiving when he's saying like, oh, the liberal trans cabal are coming from a Bitcoin. And you're just like, yeah, man. Keep fighting that good fight as you just furiously look around for your cool cousin to take a walk with. But once again, this is one of those like keep fighting the good fight kind of songs, and they don't tell us what the good fight is. It's another song about nothing. We've gotten like 3 or 4 songs almost in a row that are just about nothing. They're just words that they're just singing at us that don't mean a damn thing. And they keep singing these lines at us that try to fool us into thinking that they're singing about something like I've come so far to fall so fast and stuck between who I am and who I used to be, but there's just nothing here. So I've taken it upon myself to kind of assign a cause to this song, okay? This song is now a trans rights anthem. That's right. Creed says trans rights now. Take that, drunk uncle from earlier. I don't know, man. Maybe I was right to burn out when I did, because these songs at the end of this album just have nothing going for them. Nothing fun I can point out and say, hey, check this bit out. Except this song kind of does. I mean, listen to this, how they end the song. It's maybe a third stroke Scott is having. It kind of reminds me of that word salad jumble at the end of Signs just a little bit. I don't know. I'm literally grasping for straws here, folks. I got nothing on these. But thankfully, we just have one left. Yeah, this one kind of sucks too, which is pretty unfortunate because I feel like Creed generally tries to put some pretty decent stuff towards the back end of their albums, but no, it's obvious here that they just put like kind of the worst filler just kind of at the back. And it's kind of a bummer that I'm not just cutting the video off right as soon as I'm done talking about this song, because then I could go on this whole like philosophical spiel about like the song you sing keeps echoing, and it, you know, kind of does, because here I am all these years later talking about Creed still. Obviously the songs are still echoing for me. They're kind of ingrained in my brain now after listening to these nonstop for the past couple months. At least here, being the end of their discography, for now, the song they sing here does keep echoing because it's the end. Not the end of this video though, we still got a couple minutes left. Well, if it wasn't obvious, Full Circle is a stinker of an album, folks. I think the most telling thing here is that the two songs I enjoyed the most were two of the least Creed sounding things ever, a kind of an acoustic pop ballad and then kind of almost like a southern rock kind of feel thing with Full Circle. I don't know. They don't sound like your typical Creed, and they're the things I enjoyed the most. Everything else was pretty much trash here. And I think what's even more telling here is I looked at some Scott Stapp set lists, because he is still touring by himself with a backing band, of course. And the set lists are pretty much like 90 to 95% Creed stuff. But the only real song from this album that I saw him play regularly was Overcome. Not Full Circle, not Rain, nothing else, just Overcome. Not even any of the boring stuff that, you know, maybe he thought was good and maybe he likes. Just the one song. Whereas you got tons of stuff from My Own Prison, Human Clay, and Weathered. Just a single nugget from Full Circle, folks. And I think that's the biggest takeaway here, because even if you disagree with me on Full Circle and or Rain or any of the other songs, a single nugget is probably all you're going to get from this one, if you get anything at all. I don't know, but here's the rankings for this one. And here, finally, are the full rankings for every Creed song off of every Creed album. All 44 songs on your screen right now. This is the objective list, best to worst, of all of Creed's songs. And that's it. I'm free. I'm free. I'm finally free, folks. I'm free of my own... Oh my God. I really did create my own prison here, didn't I? Makes you think. But seriously though, thank you guys so much for watching this. I put a ton of effort into this video, and let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Just don't tell me to do this for Nickelback. Unless you pay me a fuck ton of money. Okay. So I need to ask you a little question. What do you think of the band Creed?
Rock.
What?
Rocks.
Do you think they're good or bad?
Good.
You think they're good?
Yeah.
You know, Daddy thinks they're pretty good too.
What are they doing now?
What, do you want to say anything else to the people?
No.
Can you say bye, people?
Bye, people.
That'll get the likes.